Last night, the Durham report was released, and it basically confirms what most of us knew, that there was a soft coup staged against the Trump administration, first to stop him from winning, then to stop him from actually being president. This wasn't 3 days of chaos. It was 3 years intended to disrupt the presidential administration in this country. It was so damning, this report, that even CNN came out and Jake Tapper's like, it almost exonerates Trump. Almost. It literally does. The report says that there was no evidence, no corroboration, and the FBI was pursuing this anyway. This is, in my opinion, criminal. Now, of course, the argument from the FBI is there's no evidence of anything criminal, but I think that's letting them off the hook lightly because it's all about criminal interpretation. So I definitely want to get into greater detail as we go into the Durham report's findings. But I do want to point out even CNN saying like, ooh, this looks bad. And that's bad because CNN doesn't want to do it. Here's a funny thing, though. Newsmax is now beating CNN in the ratings. So, yeah, sorry, CNN, you're out. We got more news. However, Bud Light is going to be changing their cans. They're freaking out. Their sales are getting worse, down 27.7%. So a lot of good news, a lot of good news, a lot of crazy news. And I want to talk about Patriot Front because Joe Rogan on his show was basically like, those guys are feds, no question. And my favorite point someone made was that, Patriot Front is feds because not a single person in the group is obese. And they're like, everybody knows that when you see a bunch of like right-wing patriot dudes with guns and armor, they're overweight. And so, right. Yeah. Seamus, he can't help himself.
That's actually really funny.
But it's a fair point. Like these guys are all fit. They're wearing khakis and boots. So we'll get into all that. But before we do, my friends, head over to castbrew.com. And I have news. This show is sponsored by us, our own coffee brand, and we have now in stock only a few hundred bags of Rise with Roberto Jr. In fact, I think it may only be about 100 bags of Rise with Roberto Jr. We are trying as hard as possible to get this back in stock to the point where we can keep up with the demand. But I know you will love our Rooster Roberto Jr. so much. You've bought this coffee out. We oversold. We put in a new order to roast some more. It's sold immediately. We have like 100 bags left, so get it while you can. With every bag of Rise with Roberto Jr., with every purchase, you get a picture of Roberto Jr. on the back. And we're actually going to be launching collector's editions with unique pictures of Roberto Jr. that you can collect. So that'll be coming soon. The simple version of the real ad is we're launching our own companies because we want to stand up for American values that we believe in, that you believe in. We want to make companies that won't back down. We want to sponsor ourselves. We want to build the parallel economy. And this is phase one. The purpose of Cast Brew Coffee is that we can set up coffee shops all over this country to create cultural hubs where people can have a cup of coffee. They'll see a TV screen on the wall. And what's on that TV screen? It's going to be Crowder. It's going to be Timcast IRL. It's going to be Viva and Barnes. It's going to be people that you know and trust instead of CNN and MSNBC and other garbage and even Fox News. Then when some random person walks in that coffee shop saying, I just want a cup of coffee, up on the TV, they're going to be hearing Steven Crowder. They're going to be hearing us. That's how we build cultural hubs throughout these cities. So go to castbrew.com, support us if you'd like. But you can also go to timcast.com, click join us in the menu bar, become a member to support us directly if you like the work we do. And if you sign up at the $10 level for 6 months or for the $25 level, you will instantly get access to submitting questions to call into the uncensored members only show that goes up Monday through Thursday at 10 p.m. We will have one of those up for you tonight. So sign up today if you'd like to submit some questions. Smash the like button, subscribe to this channel on YouTube, share the show if you like it. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Natalie Winters.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you guys.
Thanks for being here. Who are you? What do you do?
So I am the co-host and executive editor of Steve Bannon's War Room. Used to be, and still sort of am, an investigative reporter, primarily focusing on Chinese Communist Party infiltration, which of course dovetails with the origins of COVID. Did a lot of reporting on Hunter Biden's hard drive. I like to kind of footnote a lot of the statements that people make about really the amazing extent to which the Chinese Communist Party curries influence and favor in the United States.
Right on. Well, thanks for joining us. It should be fun.
You.
We got Seamus.
Got Seamus over here. My name's Seamus Coughlin.
I was laughing throughout the whole intro.
I'm sorry, dude. That's hysterical. That's such a good point. But I have a YouTube channel called Freedom Tunes where we upload cartoons. We're going to have one on Thursday that I think y'all are going to enjoy a whole lot. And if you want, you can become a member at freedomtunes.com to support my work. Pretty based.
Cool. And I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for Timcast.com. And I am back today. Kellen has stopped bullying me, so I'm on the air.
I also have some news. I see that someone super chatted saying they want official Tim Pool beanies. We actually do now have a large supply of official Timcast beanies. However, we decided we're not going to be selling them. We're only going to be giving them out to select members on a certain case-by-case basis. We're going right now, I think we'll be sending all of our elite members these unique Timcast beanies that we have. It says Timcast on it. And it's got a picture of a little gorilla wearing headphones. And the reason is I don't know if we're equipped to do actual large-scale merchandising just yet. So for the time being, we do have them, and we want to send them to members, starting with elite members, and then probably somehow just basically sending these people as a thank you, and then try and figure out how we can make them special, limited edition, because we only have, I think, like 200 or something like that. That's why it's like we can't just sell them because they'll be gone instantly. And we want to make them special so that you can only get them in certain ways. So take a look out for that if you're in the elite, if you're an elite member. But let's jump into this first story. We have this from humanevents.com. Durham report reveals FBI Democrats staged soft coup of Trump administration by Libby Emmons. And I would like to stress, I believe, this is NewsGuard certified human events. That means it is true facts information. The Durham report, begun in May 2019, was intended to investigate allegations that President Trump had engaged in collusion with Russia to alter the 2016 presidential election. What it found instead was an effort to undermine Trump's presidency, the confidence of the American people in his administration, and to fuel media and Democrat resentment and hatred for the man they would sooner have shot on Fifth Avenue than seen take the White House. That's some pretty good writing, Libby. They say, quote, "Our investigators determined that the Crossfire Hurricane investigators did not and could not corroborate any of the substantive allegations contained in the Steele reporting. Nor was Steele able to produce corroboration for any of the reported allegations, even after being offered $1 million or more by the FBI for such corroboration." The report reads later. It goes further to say that the information was known to be rumor and speculation. Democrats planted fake evidence and then used it against Trump in order to justify their assumptions about his guilt. The FBI used that for probable cause to further an investigation without any basis at all. Within days of their receipt, the report reads, the unvetted and unverified Steele reports were used to support probable cause in the FBI's FISA applications targeting Page, a U.S. citizen who, for a period of time, had been an advisor to Trump. As discussed later in the report, this was done at a time when the FBI knew that the same information Steele had provided to the FBI had also been fed to the media and others in Washington, D.C. I'd like to give you a simplified version so you can understand what's going on. The FBI says no criminal culpability for a lot of these people. I think they're saying, like, Hillary Clinton, nothing was overtly criminal. Here's how I see it. Imagine one day a guy is walking past a bank carrying a burlap sack. And he walks up to the bank steps, drops the bag, and walks away. Did he commit a crime? Of course not. He just threw a burlap sack on the stairs of a bank. Another guy walking into the bank to cash a paycheck sees the burlap sack and says, oh, somebody must have accidentally left it outside. Picks it up, carries it inside, throws it on the ground in front of the counter, cashes his check, and leaves. Another guy crumples up a note walking past the bank and throws it through an open window. You get where I'm going with this. One by one, each of these individuals did a small thing. No single person walked into that bank, demanded money, filled a bag full of cash, and fled. But each of these individuals did one thing that, if you were to analyze in and of itself, was not criminal. But all together, after all this goes down, the bank teller did fill the burlap sack with money, and then somebody did carry it outside. Then someone else put it in the back of a truck. Then someone else drove that truck away. And when the FBI comes and interviews all of these individuals, they'll say, look, I don't know any of these guys. This was just in the public, and I stumbled upon it. And the money was taken from the bank and driven to a secret hideout. Mm-hmm. What happened with the Trump-Russia collusion was that Democrats who wanted Trump destroyed, members of the media who wanted Trump destroyed, all claimed they used publicly available information to destroy Donald Trump's presidency. From the FBI claiming it was in the media, so we had to look into it. But the story in the media came from speculation from people in the FBI. It was one big circular scheme. And I think the only reason Durham's saying it's not criminal is because he's going easy on these people. Criminal indictments are interpretable. And I think anybody looking at what these people did could say, if Adam Schiff goes on TV, and he did, and says he has more than circumstantial evidence proving this, then there should be some kind of criminal referral. And we should not sit back and allow all of these people to destroy a presidency. Because I'll tell you where we're at right now. If nothing comes of this, if the extent of the Durham report is, yes, they all did something bad, but it wasn't criminal, then there's no country anymore. Because what's to stop any political party from doing the exact same thing to make sure no other person can have a presidential administration again?
Yeah, exactly. So if nobody here broke the law, that is an indictment of our laws as they currently stand. So just to go over some of the points that were made in the Durham report. Significant reliance on investigating leads that were funded by Trump's opposition occurred. They did not and could not corroborate any of the substantive allegations made by the Steele report. The investigation was not properly opened. Information was not properly vetted. It was carried out in an improper manner. FBI officials, according to the Durham report, had a predisposition to have a bias against President Trump. They didn't do their basic due diligence. And the FBI warned the Clinton campaign of potential Russian interference during the 2016 election, but did not warn the Trump campaign. So people can say, well, in the Durham report, there isn't any statement explicitly saying that there was an attempt at a deep state coup. He's just saying that basically everyone who handled this investigation was behaving improperly because of their bias against a sitting president. Well, that's just a distinction without a difference. I don't care if they all met in a cigar room and rubbed their hands together and laughed about the fact that they were trying to subvert the U.S.'s democracy and the fact that we had a democratic election and people chose an outsider. The fact is, what they were doing is functionally identical. They were trying to use bad evidence to attempt to remove somebody from office who hadn't committed a crime.
I think to me, the most startling aspect of this whole story is that the Durham report, right, this Russia hoax, that really was just the opening salvo of the deep state's attempt to really nullify the Trump presidency. Mm-hmm. So I think it's interesting if you sort of analyze the Trump term through this paradigm. What I mean by that, the first impeachment attempt, the second impeachment attempt, the fact that the people who were running, PPO, the Presidential Personnel Office, the equivalent of HR in the White House, were a bunch of Bush-Romney types, were very establishment Republicans. So while it's important to focus on the Russia hoax angle of it, I think it also shows you the extent to which they were willing to go to thwart the Trump presidency before he even became president, right? While he was still a candidate. So you can only imagine how much they ratcheted up those efforts to go after Trump once he actually assumed office and assumed all of the leverage, the powers that comes with being president. So I think it's such an interesting kind of paradigm to view all of the ways that the deep state really did go after Trump. I mean, I think
and continues to, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
He's facing so many different types of lawsuits and investigations. It's hard to count them all.
What's a seditious conspiracy? Seamus, do you know?
Well, I would say just based on the words, it's people conspiring to oppose legitimately elected authorities.
So if, like, I don't know, a group of people had a plan to, say, like, disrupt a presidential administration, something like that, I mean, over the period of 3 years before his election, is that seditious? I'm not gonna mince words here. They convicted Proud Boys of seditious conspiracy. Why? Because they were at a protest riot on January 6th. That's it. Like a one-day thing.
The left has done the same thing, except instead of laundering their talking points through groups, right? Like the right does say the Proud Boys or Patriot Front, all these different federally incited groups. They just do it, I think, sort of more highbrow, more high class through NGOs. Right?
This was 3 years of the FBI and Democrats and the media all working together to stop a presidential administration. Yep. That is the biggest conspiracy this country has ever seen. And there's only one thing that they're claiming that makes it not a conspiracy is it was all an accident. That's right. Every lie from Schiff, every lie from the media, every action taken by the FBI, all coming together to create a massive Russia collusion investigation with Pulitzer Prizes. Whoops! All of the reporters, all of the Democrats, and all of the feds slipped on a banana peel at the exact same time, did a backflip, landed perfectly, and won awards for it. And it was just one big accident.
And are the awards going to be withdrawn? I mean, this is what bothers me the most. I know it's important to confirm the revelations that the Durham report produces, but nothing's going to happen, right? The Proud Boys are going to have to go back to court to argue that the text messages where there are saying, where should we meet up on January 6th, prove that they didn't have a plan for that day. Meanwhile, no one involved in this is going to face conspiracy charges. And I hate to turn this into Grimcast, but it really is incredibly frustrating and disheartening. There is no punishment for what happened.
There can be. When Trump gets reelected, I expect him to have an AG start issuing these indictments, convening grand juries, and grand juries, they say, can indict a ham sandwich. Bring it on. Present the evidence and say, did these people conspire? You know what? I'll tell you this. Tit for tat. Let's play tit for tat. If you're going to accuse Donald Trump of working for the Soviet Union, then we're going to accuse you of conspiracy because y'all did say these things. Let's just go ahead and assume you did it on purpose.
Yeah. Well, remember, Tim, what they're going to try to argue is that you're an insane conspiracy theorist for thinking that basically every relevant person within the deep state being tilted against Trump and trying to unseat him on bad evidence isn't an actual coup, or is an actual coup. I'm sorry. That's a bridge too far. But them believing that the president of the United States literally colluded with Russia to rig the election and he was an asset of Putin the entire time is just reasonable thinking. And without any evidence, they could say that on national television to the American people.
Well, let's slow down there a second, Seamus. Do you think the Democrats did what we know they did?
You know, it's a
Yes
tough
or
one,
no?
man. I got to be honest.
Yes or no? Yes or no?
I'm going to speak with my lawyer. Yeah, of course.
Conspiracy theory. I got you.
And by the way, I just have to say, I said, a lot of my early career had to do with focusing on Chinese Communist Party infiltration. If Donald Trump's cardinal sin was, collaborating with the Russian government, which we know never happened, I mean, the people who are accusing him of doing that is like textbook projection in the sense that all of these, I actually used to do this can tell you what kind of social life I have, but if you used to look at the headlines that they would write on CNN, the New York Times, Washington Post, about Trump and linking him to Russia, you could basically cross out Trump and replace it often with Democrats, sometimes establishment Republicans, and then cross out Russia and put in China because the connections exist. So this whole idea that there's this, collaborating and collusion with foreign governments, I'm like, Democrats, you guys wrote that playbook when you started taking cash from Chinese Communist Party influence groups.
Exactly. And so we see how much the goalpost has moved over the years, right? Back in 2016, Donald Trump colluded with the Russians. We know he colluded with the Russians. The entire thing is a farce. The president is owned by the Kremlin. And then, okay, well, maybe he colluded with them. And then, okay, so, there's no evidence that he colluded with them, but the investigation was done in good faith. And now it's, the investigation wasn't done in good faith, and there were a lot of biases in it, and the FBI clearly played favorites by warning the Clinton campaign, not the Trump campaign, and they launched the investigation on bad information. But it wasn't a coup. It was not an intentional coup.
And
it's
he's
like,
done all
okay,
these other
I'm sure.
things.
Every single thing you have said along the way since this investigation first began, since this Russiagate farce was incepted, has been completely wrong. And now you expect us to believe you when you say this wasn't a coup? I'm sorry, we've run out of good faith.
The lawyer involved in the first impeachment tweeted out when Trump, right before his inauguration, we are going to impeach you.
Yep.
Like they expressed their intent before there was any criminal accusations or any potential wrongdoing or anything they could accuse him of. They said, we will do it no matter what.
And meanwhile, in the same exact time frame, the FBI, the Treasury Department was getting suspicious activity report after suspicious activity report based off the business dealings of Hunter Biden and all, dozen Biden family members. And they were actively suppressing that. These are obviously politically exposed personnel's PEPs. So they knew what Hunter Biden was doing from the financial transactions. And it just shows you it's not even a double standard of justice because that implies that we're in the same realm of standards. It's otherworldly. It's just ridiculous.
Yep. And I think that there's a lot to what you're saying, Hannah Claire, about the fact that our institutions probably will not punish themselves for their wrongdoings. I also hear what you're saying, Tim, about the fact that Trump being reelected could mean that he actually would go after these people and they would be duly punished for their crimes against this nation. But I will say one thing. I believe that the real black pill is not that, people who have information that could lead to the arrest of Hillary Clinton die. It's that no amount of information will ever lead to the arrest of Hillary Clinton, right? Yeah. That applies overall to this deep state. Like maybe Trump does get in. Maybe he is able to appoint investigators. It's certainly going to be an uphill battle, man.
We should have titled today's episode, Timcast reveals information that will lead to the arrest of Hillary. Just like, see what happens, Maybe it will. Maybe it will.
Yeah.
Maybe when Trump gets back in office, he will finally follow through with locking up Hillary Clinton because, this was it. It was the Democrats. It was the Clintons. It was Obama. They were trying to intentionally smear Donald Trump to win an election, and they framed him as a traitor to this country.
Yeah. And the headlines are going to be Donald Trump uses justice system for his own vindictive means to an end. You know what I mean? I mean, even if we were to get some of these officials behind bars to have to publicly face what they have done to the American people, not just to Donald Trump, but to the people who supported him, right? There is no way that the media lets this go, right?
Yep.
Even now, I think part of this time is exactly what you're saying, the timeline you laid out of being like, there definitely was a problem all the way to like, well, there wasn't anything and also we are biased and we're sort of admitting it. By now, they're gonna be like, well, but he just got found guilty in this case and he's being investigated over here. And let's talk to Alvin Bragg. And it almost doesn't matter because they were just waiting to come up with something else to try and hold against Trump. And it is honestly astounding. I don't know that we'll ever see anything like it in our lifetime of someone they hate more than Donald Trump. I mean, It's truly unbelievable the lengths that the mainstream media and the deep state will go to fight against him.
Well, I will say, I think there is someone, or more accurately, a group they hate more than Donald Trump, and that's the American people. And they see Donald Trump as a representative for the actual interests of the American people, and that bothers them because they're used to seeing politicians who are only interested in representing the elite. And so, while it may be the case that none of these people face any actual punishment at any of these media establishments or anywhere in the deep state, with respect to public opinion and people waking up to their nonsense, the one thing I can say is the walls are closing in.
I'm just imagining like high-profile Democrat fundraisers holding auditions to recruit actors to play Democrats, and they're doing the interview, and they're like, all right, give me populist. And then you got like AOC, and she's saying like, I think we should tax the rich. Like, this is really great. You're really good. Now, if you take this job, we just have to warn you, you will have to shake hands and touch these people. And then she shudders. Oh, I think I can do it. All right, you got the job. We'll get you elected, and then you can be a Democrat. And that's how I view all the Democrats and the Republicans, to be completely honest, except for like 5 people. They just despise and are disgusted by Americans.
Yeah, no, well, that's exactly what it is, right? It's funny. So there's this idea of loving the sinner and hating the sin. You know, the Democrats, they like love poverty and hate the poor. They really do. They have this entire idea in their heads that they're these champions for the working class, and they hate everything that the working class stands for. And they'll even claim that, it's funny, it applies to other things. Like they like love immigration and they hate the immigrant. When you talk to people who come here from Mexico about their values and like how they feel about gay marriage and abortion, the left is disgusted by it. They hate everything they stand for.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the counties along the border in Texas where there are levels of illegal immigration are red, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are populated by people whose families have migrated from Mexico. They have conservative values.
But you see that theory play out too, I think, even with the Russia hoax, because I also never sort of bought what they were pushing, right? It's like, oh, because a random Facebook account that was somewhat linked to Russia shared an article that was attacking Hillary Clinton on false terms, just because some random Americans read it, that now influenced their vote. They're now voting for Donald Trump. And I think, you know, if you unpack that whole narrative that they were pushing, it really shows you how dumb they think the American people are, right? And how really influenceable and just dumb.
There's no respect,
right? It's like, because you read an article, now your entire conviction, the reason why you support Trump, it can't be because you actually support his policies on trade and you want to take this country back and you despise Hillary Clinton to your core. It's because you read an article about Hillary Clinton actually being, you know, related to who knows?
How dare you read?
It's actually absolutely ludicrous conspiracy theorizing. What they argued was that non-government Russian actors spending $46,000 worth of money on Facebook ads that weren't even all targeted towards one specific party was an act of war. We had actual elected leaders saying that was an act of war from Russia interfering in our election. This is how delusional these people are.
The best part too is if you look, I remember there was a press release that Twitter had put out probably like 2 years ago. They were talking about what they were doing to mitigate foreign influence, and they had ranked all the different numbers of bots that they had from different countries. And overwhelmingly, I think it was by like a 10% increase or rather, like chasm between bots from China and Russia. The Chinese Communist Party influence on Twitter dwarfed that of Russia. So it's so funny. If you want to play with this foreign influence narrative, it's like, sure, I'll take you at your word on that, even though I don't believe you. The American people are smart enough to be immune to that. Even if you want to take them at their word, the Chinese Communist Party, their influence still prevails over Russia. So it's just bizarre.
TikTok.
Yeah.
Taking over.
Right?
So let me jump to this story. We have this tweet from Benny Johnson. Elon Musk calls the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story election interference. Quote, some of these conspiracy theories have turned out to be true. I want to play this clip for you, but I just want to stress this one point. As we're talking about the Durham report and the interference in our election and Trump's presidency from 2016 till 2020, we also get to talk about the second election interference from intelligence agencies when they sought to suppress and did suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story. Here's Elon Musk giving an interview on the matter.
Of this. I mean, you do some tweets that seem to be, or at least give support to some who would call others conspiracy theories.
Well, yes, but I mean, honestly, some of these conspiracy theories have turned out to be true.
Which ones?
Well, like the Hunter Biden laptop.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That was a pretty big deal. There was Twitter and others engaged in active suppression of information that was relevant to the public. That's a terrible thing that happened. That's election interference.
And also what wasn't mentioned by Elon was that the intelligence agency signed off on this letter, which was then weaponized by people in the media who willfully lie to manipulate. This is once again a very similar story of election interference from intelligence agencies, Democrats, and the media. There is no country unless these people are criminally charged, arrested, and removed from polite society because they are criminals who engage in criminal activity.
But have you considered that it's just an accident and they're sorry?
Oh, they're sorry? Well, now I feel bad, Seamus.
I mean, it was
Let
just
them go.
It was a mistake. That's why pencils
didn't mean to
have
do it twice.
erasers.
See, I feel like they're not sorry. They're just like, we did some stuff wrong and we changed our own rules so we won't do anything wrong again. But we don't know that they've changed the rules to... now they've changed the rules to permit them to act the way they did. They've just legalized their actions probably.
And I love this rationalization that you get from the left where they'll say, okay, like, we were vehemently wrong about this every step of the way. And we did try to ruin people's lives and we did misinform the American people. But like, we didn't mean to.
Pandemic amnesty.
And we saw, exactly. We saw it during the pandemic. We saw it during Russiagate. We see this with the left all of the time. It's like, okay, well, if you're wrong about everything all the time, I kind of don't care if you were lying or not.
Yeah.
I know that I can't trust you ever.
They're just sorry you figured it out. They're not sorry they did it.
Exactly. And this is how it works. You never admit you're wrong. You move on to the next scam. That's how scammers work, right? A scammer doesn't go like, okay, so like, it wasn't really a Nigerian prince, but I am trying to call you about your car's extended warranty.
So should we...
They just move from the Nigerian prince thing to your car's extended warranty without ever talking to you about the first thing or admitting that they were wrong. Yeah.
It's like, you're not a Nigerian prince, click. Yeah. Your phone rings again. I'd like to talk to you about your car's extended warranty. Really?
It's like, oh, well.
I feel like we should just start our stopwatches and see what big revelation is going to come out to distract us from this. Because that's, I feel like, how you can tell time in America.
Well, more importantly, I wonder what the next big election interference is going to be in 2024.
Well,
what lie will they push next?
Well, and this is what's so wild, right? So over 10% of Biden voters, according to surveys, not only did not know that the Hunter Biden laptop story was a thing because of how suppressed it was, they said if they had known about it, they would not have voted for Joe Biden. Okay, the idea that 10% of Biden voters surveyed, if that really does apply to the rest of the voting population, would not have swayed the election.
Well, what's your source?
Washington Examiner. There was a poll that they published right after the election.
I just want to make sure we have the number correct.
Yeah. I actually think it might have been more than 10%. So
more
I
than
can pull this up.
I remember Rasmussen had one that was like 6 or 7%.
Okay.
Either way, it's substantial.
Either way, it's a substantial amount. It's enough people to theoretically swing the election, depending on where they're centered or where they're based. Now,
that's called evil.
That is evil. That is clear corporate interference in American elections. And I would say that that's actually more heinous than non-government actors in Russia spending $46,000 on Facebook ads, not all of which were from one single partisan perspective. On top of that, we had actual elected leaders referring to that as an act of war, an act of war. So what do we call it when American corporations do the exact same thing on a much larger scale which there's actually good polling data to indicate did sway the election.
Well, and they're doing it on a much larger multi-hundred million dollar, almost $1 billion scale when it comes to groups like the Center for Tech and Civic Life, getting money from the Chan Zuckerberg initiative. When you talk about the lie that they're going to peddle, I think universal mail-in voting, I'm sure there'll be some sort of public health emergency that necessitates rolling that up. But it's interesting. I put a story up today. So obviously the Center for Tech and Civic Life, the Zuckerberg-funded election group, they had to sort of rebrand since they came under a bunch of scrutiny during the 2020 election. But one of their new groups, it's called the Alliance for Election Excellence. It's a very good name. But they're now they have an $80 million war chest, and they're now giving like $500,000 grants to local election offices across the country, and they're buying them, catch this, office space to store mail-in ballots and to also store election tabulation machines. So they're up to their old tricks.
Nice of them.
So I know, I'm sure, very altruistic. Anything Mark Zuckerberg does is marked by altruism.
And if it's not altruistic, it was an accident. Of course. He did it.
And
He's
really
sorry.
sorry.
And he's really sorry.
Sorry you found out.
Sorry.
Yeah,
it was an
they
accident.
all just
Remember, he
simultaneously
said he
slipped on these
wasn't
banana peels.
gonna give any money to the 2024 election cycle. He's like, yeah, me and my wife, like, peace out, we're done. But no, they just use another shady
Well, he's not
nonprofit,
giving
dark
it to
money.
the election.
Do you
He's giving it to someone to give to the election.
Do you remember when he
It's like
he
Fauci and
reportedly
EcoHealth Alliance and
he-
COVID. Right?
Zuckerberg reportedly gave all his money away or something like that?
What?
But it turned out he put it in an LLC to avoid the death tax and the inheritance tax. Something like that happened. I could be wrong, but they were like, "Wow, Zuckerberg's giving away all his money," and then they were like, "Yeah." To a company so that when he dies, it doesn't get taxed at 50%.
Yeah, it was like the Patagonia thing. Their founder was like, we're going to give all of our money away. And it's like, oh, actually, they get a huge tax credit for doing this. They're not here to save the planet. They're here to help themselves.
And the sad thing is, if he said he was doing it to avoid taxes, it would be way cooler, right? Like, I might actually appreciate that. If he's going to lie about giving it to the poor, okay, well, you're a slimy guy. You're lying about giving money to the poor. If he was just honest about it, look, this horrible government that does horrible things and is going to spend this money on nonsense isn't going to get a penny of it. I'd go, yeah, I get it. I understand.
They all do this. These wealthy individuals will be like, I'm going to donate 99% of my money. And then, like, you'll get a guy named, Seamus Coughlin, who's a billionaire.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, I'm going to donate $999 million to charity. And then he'll start a charity called the Seamus Coughlin Foundation, and I'll donate it to himself.
Exactly.
That way he can write off all of the income and then have it as a nonprofit and then keep the money.
Well, fun fact, there are actually studies that show inheritance taxes increase income inequality because the lower classes inherit a larger percentage of their net worth than the upper class does. And so usually what inheritance taxes actually do is just completely screw farmers over, because a person has a farm that they spent their entire life working on. And yeah, like the farm and the farming equipment are rather expensive, but a lot of these people are just making a normal middle class living. And then they have to pay this insane inheritance tax before they can pass it on to their children. So they end up having to sell their land off.
Yeah, that's why a lot of firms go into trust, right? They do it to
Right.
avoid having to go through the process.
Or LLCs, but trusts. Clever ways they avoid paying taxes.
But for those who can't avoid it, or for those who don't know better than to avoid it, or even people, outside of the context of farming who just have a house and they don't know how to leave it to their kids without avoiding the taxes, they end up getting screwed. Millionaires and billionaires are going to find their way around any set of taxes, right? Just like Zuckerberg did, but poor people are not.
Buying things as a rich person is not the same as buying things as a poor person.
Nope.
If you're a poor person who needs a car, you save up 10%, you go to the car dealership, you say, I want this, $20,000 car. They say, okay, it's $2,000 down, and then you take out a loan for the other 18, and then you got to pay a certain percentage on it. So you are losing money on your asset. By the time you finally get that asset, you've ended up paying double for it. So you've lost tens of thousands. If you're rich, you walk in, write a check, boom, you have the car. The car's value effectively stays the same. Let's use a better example, like land or property.
Yeah.
If you're poor and you're buying a house, you get a loan, you pay interest, you lose money to the banks to acquire this. After 30 years or whatever, you finally pay it off. You're like, I did it. I paid off my house. And you've lost twice the value of the house in the purchase. So basically, you only retain half of the value of your own money. You're rich and you got cash. Snap your fingers, you buy it, you retain all of the value. Not the same thing. And then they do these tricks where, they can give the money to their own kids.
Well,
But-
and who gets the value? The rich, the banks.
Yep. The Federal Reserve, I guess. But I guess this isn't supposed to be Occupy Wall Street cast. We are talking about election interference. So don't complain about. But hey, Steve talks about this stuff all the time.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
He wants to tax all these people.
I don't agree with these wealth tax stuff, but Steve's he's adamant on the
Well,
wealth
you have
tax.
to, because
I
if not,
don't,
they're gonna use the money to fund all of these groups, like the
true.
election rigging groups, whatever you want to call them. And I've always supported. That was one of the first policies that Steve had pushed back when I was in high school, watching him speak. I think at the Oxford Union, and I was like, "This is so right." And what's so funny is, put aside, I always love talking to Uber drivers, Democrat, Republican, and like that's the one issue that they can always get behind is that taxing the rich, but actually taxing them substantively and meaningfully, and making the policy so it's not just that the hyper-connected rich they don't have to pay their fair share, but it's everyone.
But then the government gets the money and gives it to the FBI.
Yeah, exactly.
So therein lies the problem.
Then you have to defund the FBI.
Well, yeah, that's my concern.
Trump's gotta
Not
win.
the child
I think-
sex trafficking operation, but the rest of the FBI, yes.
Yeah, well, like with the FBI, with all of these institutions, and it's not even just the deep state, it's the government overall, as Tim alluded to, it's all incredibly corrupt. They spend our money horribly. I understand what you're saying. Wealth taxes make me nervous for a number of reasons. I think, in principle, my main belief, I would say economically, is in property ownership. And I don't just mean that in like a strictly laissez-faire sense. I think the more people who own property, the better off we are as a country. I think it gives everyone a stake in the future. A country of property owners is obviously better than a country of renters. I'm a very big believer in the middle class and lower class being able to own property. And I think a lot has to be done in order to make that a realistic possibility for people in the future. But with wealth taxes, I mean, the issue is with unrealized capital gains, you're taxing something that doesn't actually exist yet. So then someone has to sell off a portion of their company. And if it was just people who are ultra wealthy, I could sort of understand, but that always trickles down, right? Anytime the government says we're only going to tax people above a certain limit, they end up lowering that bar until eventually we're all paying that wealth tax.
The initial income tax was like 3%, and it was only for the ultra wealthy.
Exactly.
And now here we are with poor people paying 20%.
Yep.
I want to jump to this next story. We got this tweet from Mario Nawfal. He says, breaking, CNN on Trump's exoneration. Quote, it is regardless devastating to the FBI, and to a degree, it does exonerate Donald Trump. Jake Tapper. He says, is CNN becoming less biased? Will other mainstream media follow suit? Let me play this clip of Jake Tapper for you.
Regardless, the report is now here. It has dropped, and it might not have produced everything of what some Republicans hoped for. It is regardless devastating to the FBI. And to a degree, it does exonerate Donald Trump.
To a degree.
I don't want to say it.
They're still so scared. They're still so scared of liberals. They can't just say Trump did not collude with Russia. He says, to a degree, it proves he didn't collude with Russia. No, it literally proves he didn't collude with
They
Russia.
can't let their dream die. They
my friend.
want this to be true so badly.
Exactly. It does not exonerate Trump to a degree. Trump was exonerated about all of this long ago. What it does to a degree is indict you and everyone else in the media who is parroting this nonsense.
And the mainstream media language around this is so funny to me. AP put out this article about it and said the findings aren't flattering for the FBI. Like it's not looking good. We don't want to say anything, but it's not great. And they say that the investigation was done without adequate bias, and they routinely ignored or rationalized evidence that undercut the premise. So the whole time they were aware that this was not worth it, and they were like, but we're gonna keep going.
Literally what happened was they said Trump has a P-tape, and we said, care to elaborate further? And they said no.
Do you guys remember the Huffington Post story about some video of Trump doing something at some time?
Yes, I saw that.
Let me see if I can pull
I saw
that up.
that. That was killing me. But no, that's literally what happened, right? And they're never going to admit they were wrong. As I said, it's just one scam after another. Move on. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how many times they're proven wrong. Does not matter how many times.
Here's the story from 2018. The hunt for every Trump reporter's white whale, the elevator tape. It says, there it was, some 1,500 words into a story published in the Daily Beast. The infamous Donald Trump elevator tape. Not the tape itself, but the first reference, the bombshell tape of Trump in an elevator. What it is, the Wall Street Journal, the AP, and others had chased a video tape that may not even exist. A certain contingent of journalists who'd spent months searching for something worth publishing. All that really mattered was the formal unveiling of the tape rumor to the public. It was basically nothing. Mm-hmm. A story about literally nothing. And they all chased after it. The famous quote was the tweet where it was like, somewhere, something exists. What it is, we don't know. What it's about, not sure. But Trump was there. We believe it.
Trump took the elevator. He's not taking the stairs. It's not healthy. This is a real scandal. They were desperate to find anything. They were desperate to find anything. And look,
And they
we know how this
still
works.
are.
Well, it was very difficult to attack Trump on the basis of his policies because they tend to be very
I got
popular.
the tweet. Huffington Post tweeted, a tape might exist of Trump doing something in an elevator, though exactly where that somewhere is and what that something might be, no one in media can say. That's because no one in media seems to have seen the tape or is even confident it exists.
What?
What?
What does that mean?
They were writing articles about this. Imagine somebody walks into the newsroom and they're like, I got huge news. What is
Something
it?
is.
I just want like
Trump may have been in an elevator at some point with a camera doing something. I don't know what he did, when he did it, or why it was filmed. And they're like, whoa, can we find that tape? Yes.
I just want this to have been someone on his campaign who was like, I know one liberal journalist. I'm going to start this rumor and just see where it goes. And they read these tweets and they're like, I started that. But they can't tell anyone because somewhere there's a video of Donald Trump.
Well, here we
They're
are.
like they're children. It's embarrassing. It is embarrassing that a
understatement.
news outlet would publish that. Yeah, it happened somewhere. This is literally when you were in 3rd grade and didn't read the book, and then you got called in front of the class to do your book report. You're like, yeah, something happened when somewhere they were like, sit down.
I got big news, ladies and gentlemen. A video may exist of Seamus Coughlin
No,
doing something.
no.
Now, what he was doing, I don't know.
In an elevator?
Where it happened, I'm not so sure. But a video exists of Seamus doing something somewhere. In fact, quite literally, what you're watching right now is a video of Seamus doing something somewhere.
That exists somewhere.
It's not bad. It's just literally Seamus talking about politics. But
plausible
it is-
deniability.
But imagine this. Imagine this. You could literally play the media was so insane. I could claim there is a shocking video of Seamus Coughlin doing something somewhere. And then everyone's like, whoa, I wonder what it could be. And they imagine Seamus like juggling bowling pins or skydiving. Who knows? When in reality, I'm referring to Timcast IRL.
My biggest scandals were juggling bowling pins and
who
skydiving.
knows?
We didn't say it was a scandal. We just said you're doing something.
Exactly. And then everyone turns it into a scandal by imagining the craziest thing.
Yeah, it's
It
true.
really is bizarre. As I guess I'm technically a journalist, and it pains me to say that because
Oof, yeah,
I
that's
reject
a rough
it.
one.
I know whenever
You
I'm
gonna admit
meeting new
that?
people and I'm introducing myself, like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a journalist. I'm sorry. I'm not going to like smear you. But it really is bizarre to me, right? Like running with a story like that when there's really nothing to report. And I think what we're going to see start to kind of unfold, which obviously we all know here, but obviously the Hunter Biden hard drive story in terms of the collusion with big tech and the FBI, the CIA, that letter, I think that really proves that there is sort of a merger, really I'd call it an axis of evil between these assets of the deep state and tech platforms. But I think the third component to that really is the mainstream media. And I think we've always known they've laundered talking points on behalf of the federal government. But I think this case, again, yes, it's vindication. Yes, we know Trump didn't collude with Russia, but this is like clear, incontrovertible evidence that I don't think we typically get to see it so plain front and center, at least, you know, us mere American people, us mere mortals, us non-elites. So I think we're going to start to see, just like that Hunter Biden story has sort of started to unfurl and you get good tidbits every now and then. I think there's going to be a lot more coming out about how the media has really just taken, whether it's FBI, CIA, you name it, their talking points and just repeated them mindlessly.
I got good news though. Take a look at this. CNN's ratings are now below Newsmax.
Amazing.
Newsmax has surpassed CNN. Look at this. 8 p.m., 9 p.m.,
Everyone
10 p.m.
at
slot.
Newsmax is like, yes, we knew we could do it. We're beating CNN.
I mean, to be fair, CNN's been collapsing. But look, Newsmax is considered more conservative, right? They get smeared and attacked by the corporate press, and now they're displacing them. CNN tried to play dirty games, and now they will cease to exist.
What have you considered that somewhere someone might have done something and CNN may possibly have some of that footage?
Also, they're sorry.
Yeah. They're
Actually,
also sorry. I'm sorry.
I can confirm.
Sorry.
There
And it's
is
Russian
a
disinformation.
video of Anderson Cooper doing something somewhere. What that thing is, I'm not sure, and where it is, I don't know. But the video does exist, and if we can find it, oh boy.
Oh, that'll be really bad.
Yeah.
That'll be really bad.
Let's
for
write
him.
27 articles about it for the next 3 years.
Every
day.
The white whale.
I just
a
wanna
video
say-
that no one knows anything. Like, do you know how many videos of Trump in an elevator there are? Probably 17,000.
Yeah, really a
Because
lot.
all of these different casino elevators have cameras. Most big, high security, like high rises and penthouses have cameras. Every time Trump got in an elevator, there's a video of him in an elevator doing something.
I just want to know how many journalists spent hours watching like leaked or like footage they finagled away from someone. It's Trump just like standing in the elevator. They're like, any second now he's going to do something crazy.
Like there's no commitment to truth. There's no commitment to reality or honesty. Look, I'm a cartoonist. I make jokes and I do political commentary. I'm not a journalist. Not anything of the sort. Given my state in life as someone who makes jokes, I could never imagine grabbing a story like that and repeating that to people, because you got to be responsible with your platform.
I think it speaks to the two-sided nature of journalism today, right? Like, they believe there is a reality that they live in, and they are here to disprove your reality. They don't believe we all live in a common shared reality. They believe that if they can create enough evidence of their own belief system, you have to admit that their worldview is right and you have to conform to it. I think that's the strange thing about so much of essentially content creation that gets passed off as journalism today. It's about arguing that the things you believe are wrong because my worldview is necessitated on the fact that these things I know to be true, that Trump is evil, that he colluded with Russia, and that if we vote for him, the country's falling apart. And in reality, even if you don't like everything Trump does, he is not this terrible person that should send you into hysterics.
Well, yeah, I mean, none of these journalists are journalists. Like 98% of the people who call themselves journalists are political commentators or they're bloggers or something like that. They write opinion pieces or they give you your perspective about something on television. Literally, I am
while
telling
claiming
you,
they're real journalists and you're not.
They're real journalists and you're not. And this is the thing. I am saying this, and I actually am willing to stand by this. There is a large percentage of the people who call themselves journalists who, minus like running a business and producing animation, do kind of the same thing I do, which is read articles, learn about the issues, do a bit of research, and then comment on them. They don't actually go investigate issues on the ground. They don't do interviews with people. They don't try to find the truth. And like, granted, I do try to find the truth, so that's one difference. But they will just read things online on like their news feed, or maybe they have someone who looks into articles for them and they'll start commenting on it, but they're not like investigating the way you want a journalist to. They're just reading things so they can give an opinion about it.
Well, I think they cherry pick facts so that they can serve their own reality. I mean, that's the only way to describe it. They will say, well, we think there's a video of Trump, so therefore he's a suspicious character. So therefore you should trust us when we say he did all of these things wrong. I think they are completely bias to, or they're completely blind to their own bias because it's so deeply embedded in their worldview.
Do you think that, you know what? I'm actually going to Google this right now. I want to see like what the bare minimum is for referring to yourself as a journalist.
There's nothing.
Like, what do you? There's nothing. So I could just say I'm a journalist because I did go to the March for Life for Timcast and interview people. I guess I'm a journalist. I mean, I interviewed people about why they were at the March for Life. So I guess I'm a journalist. I'm going to change my Twitter bias and I'm going to add journalist to it right now.
I think there used to be a standard, right? Like a journalist is different than a reporter, which is different than a writer, that's just different than a columnist. But now it's a blanket term for anyone who pushes disinformation, or publishes something that resembles news adjacent, we might call it.
I'm adding journalist to my bio. And in fact, I'm adding journalist first and foremost. Oh, I don't have enough words left. All right, I'm just going to put journalist in my bio. There, boom, it's done.
Yeah.
I'm literally a journalist now. Where's my blue check mark?
I don't know. I think you have to create one. I think you can buy one.
The blue check mark is something you just buy.
I know. Now you just buy it. I should have done some journalism on that.
Don't be too hard on yourself.
Is Serge the only non-journalist here right now? That's so embarrassing.
I'm currently doing journalism right now.
That's so mind you.
I'm always doing journalism. Just by being alive, I do. No, I'm just kidding. I think that's the hard thing. We have moved. One of the benefits of the digital age is how quickly we can get new information out there and the new formats that we get to discuss news and have commentary. I mean, this podcast exists essentially like 4 different opinion writers talking at the same time, giving your opinion, as opposed to reading 4 different opinion columns written around the same time about an issue. And that's more fun. On the other hand, we have, I think, sort of grade the classifications of news media, because anyone can be a journalist and also no one truly has any journalistic ethics or obligations. I mean, I think people do. I don't want to be too hard on all reporters. There are some great journalists who do fantastic work. But I don't think you should just be like, I'm out here with my cell phone recording the street, therefore I'm a journalist, unless you are putting some effort in, you're researching, you're trying to find the truth, you're talking to people whose opinion you don't like. I think that's what bothers me the most. So many people go into this sphere just to talk to people who they like themselves and who produce talking points similar to the ones they would produce if they were the one being interviewed.
I feel like you can really cross-apply that critique to virtually every industry in America, in the sense of this whole refrain of, trust the experts, right? The expert journalists at the New York Times and the CNNs and the Washington Posts of the world. They're actually not our intellectual betters and superiors. And I think the House of Cards, right, this ability to enforce narratives like the Russia collusion hoax, like rests on this sort of worshiping this idea that, because you work for the New York Times and you have journalist in your bio and you have a blue check mark, we must believe what you say. Because you're from the federal government and you're telling us how to mitigate a pandemic, we must listen to you and what you're saying. And I think it's sort of, they just want the American people, again, who are so dumb because they see an article on Facebook, they're just going to start supporting some candidate. But I really think they just want us to blindly put our faith in every aspect of our life, right, over our bodies, what we believe, what we think, what we eat, you name it, into our, intellectual superiors, into this elite ruling class. And I think, frankly, that was what COVID proved, that this elite ruling class that is so smart. And Joe Biden, who, that class of people used to mock, they'd always say, Donald Trump made a fool of America on the world stage. And I always like this concept of the world stage, like they care so much what their, globalist brethren think of them and what America looks like. But then you take a step back and you're like, okay, well, even if I'm going to run with that paradigm, Joe Biden has made us look like a complete idiot and just dismal failure on the world stage.
I just want to point out, as you all were talking, I was doing journalism, and I
found the footage.
I found the footage. This is a still image. Donald Trump in the elevator. Look how shocked everyone is.
Oh my God!
They're shocked of Trump.
Journalism.
They're so surprised at his behavior as Trump is yelling about something. It's so shocking, this footage, that I can't even describe to you what actually happened in that elevator.
That is horrifying.
Trust me, I've seen it.
That is legitimately.
It's real. Tim's a journalist.
One of my favorites.
This is, of course, an AI generated image of Donald Trump in an elevator. I just typed it into Midjourney.
Don't give away the secrets, Tim.
AI generated journalism.
AI
is what it was.
Journalism.
One of my favorite things, you're mentioning a lot of the things they were saying about Trump, when they had an anonymous source reporting that Trump said something completely insane on Veterans Day, like, I frankly hate all veterans. It was the most absurd nonsense in the world. You're like, okay, he didn't say this, and it was from an anonymous source. I couldn't help but laugh because, an anonymous source only works if you're a trustworthy person, right? If there's any reason to trust you. I have seen the stories that you guys tell when you have a named source. So no, I don't trust your anonymous sources. And frankly, I think you probably made it up yourself.
Well, and theoretically, if you had professional standards, you'd call the Trump White House or campaign, wherever we were in the timeline, and say, hey, do you care to comment on this? We're going to run with this story. You should have a chance to respond. That's supposed to be ethical, but they probably won't. And even if they do, they'll say, the Trump campaign categorically denied this while they shook in their boots because they're so scared of our amazing anonymous source, who we can't tell you anything about. It's real. Trust us. I think that it was important to acknowledge that this does happen in all walks of life. That's a really good point. I think there are so many institutions that people point to when they want to use authority to back up their arguments. I mean, we see this a lot. I'm loath to bring it up because I know we talk about it a lot, but with the transgender ideology movement, people will point to the American Association of Pediatrics and say, well, they say there are certain things you are supposed to do. They'll point to all kinds of medical establishments. And I think we have to look back and say, why do we trust these institutions? Some of them may do good work. I don't know, but you should look into the institutions. Who's on the board? How do they assemble themselves? Are they elected? You have to have a certain qualification. What is their mission statement? If you just throw out the name like this is the authority, then you are either A, trying to hide the bias, or B, you are not aware of the bias, which in and of itself is dangerous if you're putting yourself in a position where you're supposed to be giving out solid information.
Dude, Midjourney's crazy.
It is wild.
I got another one.
Dude, you're doing some real journalism tonight,
I'm tweeting another one. Let me try and pull it up for you.
So Natalie, personally as a journalist, I've never used an anonymous source. Have you ever?
I'm trying to think if I've actually ever unironically used it or not. Most of my reporting, well, I guess either comes from the Hunter Biden hard drive or publicly available data that the mainstream media won't report on when it comes to Chinese Communist Party infiltration, because usually I'm reporting on how the mainstream media is compromised by the Chinese Communist Party. It's a very good niche market, I've found. But no, it is weird. It really is funny though, and like you guys are saying, like people, I think for the most part, hate journalists. Like I get that whenever I'm introducing myself to people and telling them what I do for work. I have never had a positive interaction with someone. Then when they find out that I'm technically like not really a journalist because it's Steve Bannon and he's great, then they're like, oh, you're normal. You're like not one of them. But people hate journalists. I didn't realize.
But my experience is, I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but if you talk to someone who is like progressive or left and who is a journalist and they like proudly introduce themselves as a journalist, like they are the bearers of truth, I find this very fascinating. Like it is definitely a cultural shift. Some people do not trust the media, and for good reason. But there are some people who wear it as a badge of honor, and that is also worrisome.
Yes, and of course, I feel like we have to give an honorable mention to the like fact checkers of the world and the Media Matters, the media watchdog types, because they're obviously in on the same grift. But no, they attack me all the time for working with Steve, saying that I'm not actually an investigative reporter. It's like, fine, then point to one of my stories.
Investigate
that's not
me.
true.
Prove it.
Right? I've never been sued. I've never published or printed anything incorrect. Frankly, a lot of my investigations have led to people wiping their Twitter accounts, getting fired, getting removed from boards. So the evidence is there, right? There's obviously action occurring from my reporting. So it's just, I think, you brought up the transgender movement. A lot of this just, I think, has to also just do with like distorting words, right? Mm-hmm. Like journalist doesn't mean what it used to mean because definitions they're not rooted in reality, because everyone can have different really versions of reality. And that's of course amplified by the fact that if you turn on CNN, they say, oh, to a degree. Well, what does that mean? It's not even double speak. It's a whole different language.
I want to jump to the story about Patriot Front. We have this from Newsweek. White supremacist march on D.C. sparks conspiracy theory. FBI was involved. So the group is called Patriot Front. And I've seen a bunch of people on the right say that journalists, as well as personalities, that I think Elijah Schaefer was saying that he's really well connected on the right. He knows a lot of people from various different groups. He's talked to them. He's interviewed them. And he knows no one associated with Patriot Front. I thought that was very interesting because, I've been to a lot of these events. I used to go on the ground and do a lot of reporting. I've interviewed a lot of people, and I've never met a single person who was associated with whatever this group is. Not that I'm on the ground in the past few years anyway, so maybe it's new, I guess, in the past 5 years or so. But the funniest thing about it is we have this clip from the Joe Rogan Experience of the Patriot Front March. I want to show you an image of these individuals. Here you can see they all have these hats. They have these masks. They all wear masks. They have shields. They all wear the same things. Like somebody ordered the same blue jacket, like 300 of them. They all wore the same thing. They ordered the same white net gaiters, the same khakis, the same boots. So really well organized, I suppose. And then I want to show you what Joe Rogan had to say in response to seeing this video. I think he was on a show with Matt Taibbi.
Look at these guys. Where's the fat people? How come they're all wearing the same clothes? Do that again. What the fuck is this? Have you ever seen anything that looks more like
Where's
feds?
the fat people?
Tell me that doesn't look like feds. Right?
It's like the 101st Airborne.
Bro, look at this. These guys are all runners. These guys look like they just got out of buds.
I mean, look,
fuck out of here. Look at this. The fuck
So,
out of here.
So I saw someone comment, it's not real because whenever you see an actual right-wing militia group, they're all morbidly obese, or at least a handful of them are, not all of them. And it's like, that's actually fairly interesting. Now, I have seen people push back and say, don't underestimate them. They like that they're being called feds. The reality is someone posted an image from an internal FBI report where the FBI actually warns that among the FBI, half of the agents are morbidly obese. So it's actually the other way around. And the argument is the actual white nationalists do fight and train. And so it may be real. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what to think. All I know is it's weird. This group has police protection. Mm-hmm. They were allowed. They did this march where they then were given an escort to the subway, where
Which was cleared for them, right?
It was cleared for them, and no one was allowed to go in after them. They've loaded into trucks under police watch and guard, and then left. So Joe Rogan may be right about this.
Yeah,
I like what he said. Where are the fat people?
Funny story. I was actually walking through DC and I stumbled upon them while they were doing that. So I was being an
Oh,
unintentional
coincidence,
journalist. Yeah, I was doing my journalistic duties, and I had thought they were Patriot Front because I have obviously been to a lot of Trump rallies and been around. And I know this isn't necessarily evidence or fact based, but you can get a vibe from people who are there to protest for the right reasons. There's just sort of a vibe to the Trump crowd or people who are there, whatever the issue is, because you can tell that they really want to be there and they're talking to other people who aren't necessarily there to attend the rally, but they're trying to sort of proselytize and spread the cause and spread the word. And it was such an odd vibe. And I know that's not, again, doesn't mean much, but I had just never seen a group of people protesting who are allegedly so patriotic acting the way that they were, just walking in
Where's
formation.
Antifa?
It was
Where's Antifa?
It was bizarre.
How come Antifa's not protesting any of these guys? No, serious question.
Yeah.
Where they at? Huh?
Well, and why do they have a police escort, right? When I first saw a picture of this, someone was like, oh, it's like Charlottesville and the Unite the Right walk. And I was like, this looks way more organized than that did. Zeke Arkham on Twitter had his thing, and I guess he's in law enforcement. He was saying there's photos of them being arrested theoretically, except they all still have their masks on and they're kneeling. And he's basically going through being like, you wouldn't let them continue to wear their masks because you have to make sure they're breathing when they're in police custody. You wouldn't have them kneeling in this position. None of this makes sense. It's almost like you're waiting to hear oh, actually the whole thing was staged for a movie and they're filming it and this is what they think this is like. It seems so strange, especially since there are police involved. This is not normally how police respond to any kind of right group, extremist or not, demonstrating publicly. They usually have very little police support.
That was funny when Joe's like, "Where are the fat people at?"
It's real though. That's very real.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you guys think? Feds?
Look, I mean, I have no idea, but it's not something that would be shocking if it came out, right? My instinct is just to assume that something's up at this point. I mean, it's almost foolish to not actively distrust them, right? So I don't know. There's
I don't
obviously
trust that
militia
Antifa's
groups
not feds.
Yeah.
There's stories about these Antifa guys getting picked up, driven around the block, and then let go.
Yep.
That's what they do with informants. I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, and there were federal FBI informants on the ground on January 6th, which apparently was also planned, so therefore the FBI knew about it, ? None of it makes sense. The thing about this is it's just so uniform. They all are in the sunglasses and the hat and the exact same jacket. I just really don't think there's it's too precise for it to seem like an organic movement.
And how it just immediately hits the left-wing social media machine, the blue check mark, the angry blue check marks on Twitter and the mainstream media. It just, I don't know, I feel like it wasn't even about the march itself. It's how it gets rolled out, and then it's used as a pretext to start a broader narrative about how white supremacy and nationalism and xenophobia are on the rise. And so we, and then they make the jump. We need to crack down on, random Twitter user 123.
Right. Were there any was there any chanting? Was there any demands? What was the message? I don't understand, other than the fact that it's Patriot Front, what is the theoretical racial messaging behind this activity?
Right. There's almost no media about it. They don't have any media presence. I don't see anything about Patriot Front other than stuff that's very nicely
and this specific demonstration.
Yes,
I don't.
Exactly.
Where is the chanting? We got some great sound bites from previous events.
So convenient.
What
it's
is
really
this?
fishy, right?
Yeah. But the media has declared that it's a white supremacist event, so therefore it has to be
the whole Russia hoax.
Right. That's what I think. Yeah.
I feel like the FBI is going to come out and be like, it was actually just a drill. We were just practicing to see what would happen.
The FBI headquarters was literally just, a block away from where they were marching. So
no, hold on. I'm not some kind of conspiracy theorist lunatic who is going to say that these guys
they're protesting
are
Mother's Day,
feds.
so they marched this last weekend.
I am not some conspiracy theory lunatic who's going to say this is feds. The obvious explanation is these are Russian agents from the Kremlin
from the Soviet Union,
because Putin wants to reform the USSR. Yes.
No, they're Soviet, and they were sleepers. And when the Soviet Union collapsed, they didn't know because they were brainwashed. And then, because Putin wants to bring the Soviet Union back, he activated the radio signal, which triggered all of them into acting for the Soviet Union.
Just as a journalist,
that proves
I could
it.
never say that the United States government did anything wrong, because being a
According
journalist
to my
means
anonymous
defending the
source.
United States government. Yeah, my anonymous source told me that they're not feds.
So you think about how insane that story is about Trump in the elevator, where it said somewhere something Trump did something like that.
Yes,
that starts with some rumor, and then a bunch of journalists who are psychopaths chase after this insane rumor. Imagine what's going to happen when someone gets an AI generated image on their phone and they go to a journalist, and intelligence agencies will do this, and they'll be like, journalist, I can't give you the photo because I'll get arrested because it's classified, but take a look at this. And they'll show a low res AI generated image of Donald Trump, juggling bowling pins or something. And then they'll be like, it's real. And then they'll be like, but I can't give it to you, but keep it on the DL. That journalist then goes and tells their boss, I saw the picture. It was Donald Trump juggling bowling pins. I swear, this is a source is good. I've checked his credentials. They're going to go, wow, maybe we should run it. And then just like BuzzFeed News released the Steele dossier, they will report source at FBI confirms Donald Trump juggled bowling pins, and they'll just walk right into fake news. That's where we're going.
I think that we should start doing this on purpose, though. Like, you should write down a piece of paper, hold it up to video camera with today's date, the story you're going to tell every left-wing journalist that you know, and then wait until it becomes mainstream news. And then be like, by the way, that was false. Like, I know that sounds like spreading disinformation, but you should just point out that there are leaks, that there are people who take this information and intentionally try to paint everyone you know in a bad light.
I think it's only a matter of time before those Tucker Carlson leaked videos get revealed to be deepfakes, or at least one of them. Because I think about this, Media Matters will publish anything. And so what someone could theoretically do is take 10 real videos, make one deepfake video, give them all to a leftist organization who will publish them all, then definitively prove the deepfake one by showing a video of them making it and say, you're fake news and you make up stories. Then what happens? The subject of those deepfakes can file a massive defamation lawsuit for the publication of a deepfake with proof. And then what's going to happen is they're going to say, we didn't know it was a deepfake, and they have to argue to the court they thought it was real because of a source giving it to them. And then the argument can be made, no, they're lying. We want discovery. We think they made it themselves. And then the question is, where did they get it? They're going to have to reveal a bunch of information, and it's going to destroy whatever smidgen of credibility they may have had with anybody.
Someone tweeted at me, I can't watch it right now since we're on air, but they tweeted something to me that has 55,000 likes. It was posted yesterday, and it's a Fed gets recognized and called out at their staged Patriot Front march.
Who tweeted it?
This is from...
Did you retweet it?
No, I have not retweeted it. I can send it to you.
Just retweet it.
It looks like a MAGA account. I have no idea if it's legitimate or not, but someone just tagged me in this, so it could be fun to watch.
I just don't understand what this protest is. I'm sorry, they just walked through DC and they didn't say anything, and then they got on the subway.
They had a banner and it said something to the effect of, I think, reclaim or rebuild the family.
So
which is just such generic talking.
Extremist pro-family group.
Hold on. I like this.
It's not a white supremacist group. It's just a pro-family
reclaim
group.
families or something.
What does that mean?
They're just a pro-family group. This is a pro-family extremist group, so they're getting it wrong.
Must reclaim.
Seamus just retweeted it.
Yeah, I got the video
right here.
Pull it up.
Let's play it.
So you're videotaping us? That's not acceptable.
This is a public place.
You're trying to get us in trouble, sir.
I need a copy.
You go find one. I'm deleting the video.
No, you're not going to touch my phone.
You're not taking a video of us. I pull my mask down.
I recognize you.
Yeah, I know you do.
So give me my phone.
I'm deleting the video.
Whoa,
Dude, this guy literally walked up to him and said, in the most license and registration tone I've ever heard in my life, give me that camera. You cannot film that video.
Go find one.
Going to delete this.
The video.
No, you're not going to touch my phone.
You're not taking a video of us.
I mean, a lot of cops like to do that.
I don't understand this.
Yeah, I know you.
Taking a
Two
video
parties,
even though you're
one
not
tyranny.
supposed to be recording?
So this is from yesterday. Where James O'Keefe's trying to get a whistleblower. Where's Antifa, man? Antifa, the one time we actually need your help.
But
you know what I mean? To go out and film these guys and figure out who they are. Y'all are nowhere to be found.
But maybe that's the litmus test. Antifa is not there, and therefore this is not real.
Yeah.
Fed on Fed violence.
It's like a canary.
Yeah, exactly. The feds aren't going to go film themselves. Why would Antifa go film Patriot Front?
Dude, Fed on Fed crime makes me so sad. I wish they got along better.
You ever hear those stories about the FBI and the DEA stinging each other?
Yes.
The DEA is trying to sell drugs to the FBI, and they're like, freeze, federal law enforcement. Wait, so are we? Wait, what's going on? Who are you?
When I was a kid, there was a
$3 million.
car. When I was a kid, there was a car at the end of our block being super sketchy. And so my mom called the police. She's like, look, there's something really weird going on. I don't know what it is. And then the police came, and it turned out that they were undercover cops, pretending to commit a crime to try to entrap somebody or catch them or something. So we turned the feds against each other, I guess.
Your mom
on accident.
reported the police
My mom
to
didn't
the
mean. Yeah,
police.
my mom called the police on the police.
When they
Called the
are
cops
actually
the cops.
terrorizing the neighborhood by pretending to be criminal.
Pretending to be criminal. No, they weren't like terrorizing, but they were up to something really like fishy. That
Yeah,
she
but
did.
I'm sure
she
your
did
mom was
call
not
the
the
cop
only
very
mom
many
in the
times.
neighborhood
Yeah.
who was like, what's with this lurking car?
Yeah, she was not like she did not call the cops often, but it was.
We'll jump to this next story. We got this from Timcast.com. Bud Light to release camo print bottles in attempt to recover from Dylan Mulvaney fiasco.
On. They're
That'll
like,
help. Yeah.
come on.
I think you guys are really. I think
Here,
it's
take a look at
interesting
this.
that they're doing this on the eve of Pride. They're going with camo for Pride.
Wow.
Bud Light sales
Wow.
at the end of May 6th was down 27.7%. And you can see all of their Anheuser-Busch's brands, ABI brands, and Anheuser-Busch InBev have dropped. And this is what the street says. New Bud Light data suggests outrage against company is waning. What does that really mean? What? The reason why sales aren't getting any lower is because they've lost already around 30% of their sales. So close to 1/3, let's just say a quarter of their customers have dropped them. As this spreads, it will probably stay around this number. A lot of people don't care. I went to a grocery store. They had Bud Light right in front. I didn't even think twice about it. Yeah. There was it was like have a barbecue, like go out and grill and have tacos, and then it was a bunch of stuff like taco shells, and I was like, oh whatever. And then there was a row with both sides was all Bud Light and coolers, and I thought it was funny. I was like, oh look at that, all the Bud Light, and I didn't realize it till later. I was like, oh wait, they moved all the Bud Light to the front of the store, and it was on sale.
I love how.
Sorry, I always kick this thing. I'm a hazard.
I love just the blatant hysterical overcompensation. They're like, gay? No, we're not gay. We're army guys. Yeah, no, we're army guys now. Yeah, no, for sure.
Right.
Hey, look at us. I got camo beer. We're camo
It'd be
now.
funny if
it's
no,
like,
but
dude,
hold on.
you were wearing-
Wait.
You were wearing a
Hold
dress
up.
last week.
Camo. Is it navy camo?
No, I was gonna say they didn't do a navy thing
part
though.
of their.
It's the brand is blue. So they might go for the navy blue. I love the thing everybody was mentioning, like the Navy made blue camo. It's like you fall in the water and no one can see you.
Oh my gosh.
Like, what's the point of that?
They're like, hold on, we have to push away from this reputation. Let's do something manly, military service. I got it. It cuts to their commercial in the Navy.
Like, what is the best
poor
military
Navy.
branch? We have a great idea. No, I think this is sort of a crazy answer. I hope that anyone can see that this is such an gross way to try to sell your product off the military.
Stolen valor. It's a little bit. It's a little bit stolen
valor. I think
valor.
if Bud Light really wanted to sell their products, this is what they should do. And I know it's gonna sound insane, but I think they should just start infiltrating Pinterest with like 1,000 ways to cook using only Bud Light. Like tell
Folds
all
of Honor program.
Right. To be like, it's cheap. You can get Bud Light. It's not expensive right now. Some places you can get it for free.
Dude.
And you can cook it in your slow cooker. You can do all these things, but you have to use Bud Light. Eventually, that's the only way to sell your product. You have to pretend that you're not actually a drink. You're just actually some random ingredient.
I am getting more and more angry reading about this. I am seriously pissed off reading this.
What is it?
Anheuser-Busch will produce bottles with the camouflage print and images of the Folds of Honor program, which provides educational scholarships for children and spouses of fallen and disabled American military service members and first responders, according to the executive. No. Earmuffs, if your children are in the room, you have been warned. Fuck you, Bud Light. Go fuck yourselves. This is probably 10 times more offensive than anything they could have done. They spit in your face. They mock you behind the scenes. They talk in private about how they know you're mad and they refuse to apologize. And then they say, I know, let's shove disabled military veterans in their faces as if that will absolve them of their responsibilities. This is the most offensive way, in my opinion, to respond to the backlash.
Dude, well, the first thing they did was bring up 9/11.
Yeah.
Which
Seriously.
is wild. They're like, we're not gay. 9/11 Army. America.
Don't you see that Clydesdale? We're the good guys.
With a horse. We ride horses and we ride horses. 9/11 Army.
Also, this foundation, I feel sad for them because they're going to also get backlash. Like, even
Nope,
if
don't
they're
care.
legitimately trying to do good work, like, why would you accept a partnership with Bud Light right now? Like, I don't care how much you think they're worth. This is a bad idea.
If a company wants to align themselves with Bud Light, that the only thing this European company is doing, it's not an American company, is repeatedly kicking us in the stomach over and over and over again. Just don't buy their products.
He's trying to placate American consumers. And I think it dovetails, honestly, kind of perfectly with the whole Russia hoax. It's like, we're going to lie to you. We're going to offend you and your values for this long period of time. But you still need to buy into the American system. You still need to trust the authorities. You still need to trust the FBI. You still need to buy our products. We're not going to change anything. Yeah, we'll give you the Durham report. We'll vindicate you slightly. Yeah, we'll partner with some 9/11 charity. But it's like, no, we're done with you. Like you said, I won't use the word, but it's corporate America.
They needed
sucks.
to come out and be like, hey, look, we're really sorry about this. We had a marketing VP who wanted to
It won't work.
endorse, and we think the campaign was not appropriate for our audience. We didn't mean to offend anybody, so we hope you'll stick with us. We will not be pursuing campaigns like this in the future. I'd have been like, oh, that was really straightforward and very nice of them. Instead, they just keep laughing behind the scenes, and they're doing these tricks to try and make it seem like sales are returning. And all they keep doing is, instead of assuming responsibility, they absolutely refuse to say, we were wrong. So we were wrong. Sorry, guys. We were wrong. And they're just digging. They're digging deeper and deeper and deeper.
I gotta be honest. I think saying they're wrong still would not undo the damage. I think a lot of dudes are just gonna see this as a gay brand from now on. It's gonna gross them out for that reason. They're not gonna want to be seen as gay, or they're not gonna want to support it, and so they're not gonna buy the beer. That's it. If they came out and were like, hey, Sawi was an accident, like our wonderful elected leaders do, and the people at the FBI, it still wouldn't do anything for them.
I think these woke marketing executives, though, their brains are so infested, like they have drunk the Kool-Aid on all of these social issues, that I also think that they also don't even actually want to make money for their companies, right? That's not like in their DNA, right? Doing that is another cardinal sin that you can't engage with. And so I think these people have always used these platforms to push social agendas. So they're not going to apologize, because they're like, no, we're using this venue, this avenue for the explicit purpose that we were hired for. And I'm sure they have DEI beyond belief in terms of their hiring processes. So you're self-selecting for these loons.
They already disavowed Dylan Mulvaney behind the scenes, but they refuse to do it above the fold. They refuse to do it in a statement. They're going to their investors, they're going to the distributors and saying, we don't have anything to do with this, we disavow. But then the customers who are angry, they're like, ignore those people, they don't matter. Instead, we'll make a camo print and say disabled veterans over and over again. There you go. That'll get our customers back.
Well, it's incredibly
they want it to be like,
childish.
now if you aren't drinking our beer, it's because you hate disabled veterans. Where it could be, you're like, I just haven't forgiven you for the past. I mean, I wish they would just go dark. You know what I mean? I wish they would just stop for a while. Let yourself fade into the oblivion. I think people won't forget. I think you're right. But I think trying to start another campaign is only digging further into the hole, right? Like now it seems like you are just acting in the most smarmy way. You're insulting military veterans. You're insulting the people who want to support military veterans. You're insulting your audience, and you're not making yourself more likable in the process. Like nothing is going to repair this. The best thing they could do is to just stop talking for a while.
Something funny, Seamus?
No, nothing.
Something you want to share with the rest of the show?
Nothing. Serge just gave me a piece of paper with an idea on it that I also had earlier, by the
So
way.
you admit that you steal his ideas.
Nothing. No, it's a cartoon that might be worthwhile. It's about Bud Light. I'll mention after the show. We wouldn't want to spoil it, but they've totally tanked themselves. It's really embarrassing. What they're doing it was super gross, but they've continued to be disgusting. I don't see a way out of this for them, man. I really don't. If they're unbelievably fortunate, people will forget, but that's probably not gonna happen.
It's just they keep, you know what the best thing they could have done is? Nothing. If they did nothing, if they made no commercial, no Clydesdale, no 9/11, no Folds of Honor, and just literally said, guys, shut up, and we just drop all marketing, and we're just going to sit back. And then everyone would be like, well, you know, they did that thing that one time, I'm not going to buy. And then it would have just tapered off. Instead, they're like, can we every week punch our customers figuratively in the face?
Well, it's also, it's just wild. Like, as if they're going for this low-hanging fruit, right, that they know people agree with, which is really insulting. Like, 9/11 is something you're supposed to have reverence for because a lot of people died. It was an attack on American soil. To be like, oh, you know what, we'll come out as, like, anti-9/11 or caring about the fact that 9/11 happened, and that'll make up for the fact that we pissed off all of our customers and they'll start to relate to us again is insanely insulting. It's, like, insanely insulting.
It's cultural to not buy this product.
Yeah.
There's someone posted a photo at a CVS where it's on sale. They brought all the beer to the front. They're like on
Please
clearance.
take this.
I went to a liquor store and I was like, ooh, are they going to put a Bud Light? I'm like, where's the Bud Light ads? And then right there, right by the door, it said Bud Light sale.
Yeah.
All of it on sale. And you walk in and they have a big shelf trying to get rid of it. The product won't move.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Good.
I saw somebody send me something on Twitter. It's like $4.95 for a 30 rack of Bud Light.
Wow.
That's crazy.
We had some of the staff here were mentioning that they were at a local bar and they asked the bartender. Bartender said they can't move it at all, so they took it off tap and put Coors Light in because nobody will buy it.
I don't blame
You can't
them.
move a product. What are you going to do?
And this is what people don't realize, though, and this is part of why it's been so effective. Everyone's arguing, "Oh, this is such a good move by conservatives on the part of the culture war, or this is such a huge victory in the culture war on behalf of conservatives." I don't know how much of this is actually culture war in the sense that people who are invested in culture and politics are paying attention to it and strategizing, so much as it's just normal people being grossed out.
Well, I think that's part of it. It's a grassroots indication of the culture war that that it's not just about people who are in positions that are adjacent to the media. It is about what the public actually will tolerate and what they won't. I mean, we talk about all the time voting with your dollar. This is the ultimate vote with your dollar moment. They don't want companies like Bud Light essentially making fun of them and assuming they'll take whatever advertising is doled out to them and they'll go along with it. And I think that's a really powerful moment. I mean, in some ways, it is, I think, something a lot of conservatives will look back on and say, like, we had an influence. Like, yes, I'm sure Anheuser-Busch is suffering. They're about to face massive layoffs. There are probably really serious financial repercussions. And there are people at Bud Light who don't deserve that, right? Who were never in a position to make these decisions. On the other hand, I'm really grateful that as a culture, there was something that we drew a line at.
Well, it's that, but again, I think a lot of this just boils down to the fact that a man in a dress is very off-putting. It's a very off-putting thing. And it's not so much people going, I'm insulted by the fact that this advertiser is trying to shove this down my throat and doesn't understand who I am as an advertiser or as a customer. I think it's just them going, gross. I don't want that beer.
It doesn't have to be one unanimous reason. They just all collectively decided this was too far, that they don't want to keep going with this. And I think that's something that, people talk about the pendulum swing, and with cultures we become more progressive or, whatever else. Like, this is one of those moments where I start to feel like it's swinging back the other way. We're going to start slowly moving towards center after years and years of pushing everyone to these extremes.
They went too far. I want to jump to this story here. We got a tweet from Gwyn Hogan. Outside PS-17 in Williamsburg, kids chant, quote, "We support asylum seekers, but not on school grounds." You've got to hear it to believe it.
We support asylum seekers, not on school grounds. We support asylum seekers, not on school grounds. We support asylum seekers, not on school grounds.
You hear that? They're kind of just like trailing
This
off,
is
like muttering. Let me just say, there's a few ways I see this, and this is, these kids, one, probably were told to chant this, have no idea what's going on. Two, it's like basically them chanting, "Thank you, government, for hitting me twice instead of thrice." Like, the government is forcing illegal immigrants into your schools, and you're like, that part's okay, just not in my school, please. Do it to somebody else, not me.
Also, this is so embarrassing. This is why conservatives lose, right? They're buying into the framing. You're buying into their framing by apologizing in your statement. We're like, look, we're not against asylum seekers, okay?
These
like,
aren't conservatives, it's New York.
I understand that.
These are New York liberals
they're having
saying,
like a
"Thank
debate.
you, government, can I have another?"
I know, but they're arguably debating from like a conservative position. This is something people would call right wing, like, "Oh yeah, you don't want them on school grounds. How bigoted of you." It's like, well, they're coming out and saying they're against that, but they still feel this need to apologize.
I think you guys went mixed up, Seamus. These are urban liberals who are standing outside cheering for quote unquote asylum seekers, and then being like, "But like, why in my school?"
Yeah, maybe it's just cocked.
You should do it to someone else.
I guess for
maybe
me,
more like the Martha's Vineyard thing.
Yeah, I feel like for me, it's like, don't we get mad at the left when they make young children who are confused about their gender identity testify before their state legislature saying, like, if you don't allow this medical intervention to be passed, then I will personally suffer? Like, don't we not like it when we use children for our talking points? Why are we bringing small children out here to say, please don't send I assume they're adult asylum seekers to our school? Like, why are they having to have this battle? Why is no adult fighting for them?
Also, I mean, just the fact that you would have to preface this with, "I'm not bad. I don't have the bad opinion, but I don't want them here." Well, you're going to lose because you're already starting from a position of, "Sorry, Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That doesn't.
It's like
Thank
it's
you,
typical
government. May I have
Williamsburg, man.
another?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
So this is what happens. I think this story is actually a really great example of modern politics in that these urban liberals say it's okay that the government does bad things. Just please do it to other people.
Yeah.
So the government says, we want to do a bunch of bad stuff. They say, okay, so long as it goes over there.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Instead of just saying, no, don't do the bad thing to anybody.
Well, it's like what we saw with Martha's Vineyard. That was hysterical. They were freaking out. They're like, we can't handle all of these people. Really?
It was like 4 dozen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, how could you do this to us?
If any community in the country could handle it, it was Martha's Vineyard. They're like, round them up, get rid of them.
But you know, there's like no organic support for the issue when they roll out the children. I remember they would always do the school walkouts. At first, it started with the gun violence, and I remember at my high school, I forgot what shooting it was, but they had they staged a walkout out of class, except the administration like sanctioned it and literally gave them a special space to hold it. It's like, who are you walking out on?
The school I work for put it on the official schedule for
exactly.
the day.
And then they did the same thing with the
yeah.
climate change walkout. And to be frank, I think that's why they're pushing a bunch of this transgender, gay stuff on kids, because I think they realized the way that they sort of mainstreamed a lot of these climate change and school shooting issues was by getting the kids behind it and having them do these walkouts and mass protests. They're like, if we can get the young kids, drinking the Kool-Aid on this issue.
The Greta Thunberg effect.
Right, exactly.
But it's
I can't tell you how many teachers were like, she's so
what a
inspirational.
bizarre sign.
It's like South Park when they're like, what's going on? We're protesting the war. Okay. Yay. No school.
Yeah.
This looks like the teacher said, kids, we're at 11, we're all going to go protest. And the kids are like, okay, I guess. And the funny thing is the kids don't even have any enthusiasm.
They both don't know what
wait
asylum means.
Wait a minute. They really don't care to say words. And some of the kids are laughing, clearly not paying attention.
But
just
also,
like, I don't know, I'm not in school.
What a crazy proposal. I don't know the specifics, but to even have like asylum seekers on school grounds, like the fact that that's something that we're even debating, that there needs to be a protest about. I mean, like that's
But there aren't any asylum seekers anywhere because none of these people are asylum seekers. They're
got asylum,
adult
didn't they?
male economic migrants.
Yeah.
They're not asylum. I doubt a single one of them is an asylum seeker. They are men who are told online that they can come to the United States because the borders are open and there are jobs. They go to the border and then they ask and they talk to reporters and the reporters are like, why are you here? And they're like, because there's jobs.
No, I think that is what happens. Sorry, I can't fix this UFO. I think, again, I have to go back to, we don't like it when the left trots out children to argue their talking points. So even if you're trying to say, like, this is a slightly, an immigration restrictionist talking point, why are we making the children do it? We have to hold ourselves to the same standards that we hold other people to. And I think you're right. I don't think these kids were like, hey, we can go outside. You're going to film us for social media. Haha, hilarious. Like, they don't care. And I appreciate that about them, right? Like, they're children. They just want to go to school and hang out with their friends. That's why we don't drag them into our political
probably
bias.
didn't incite this protest. We can't be sure, but yeah,
No, it's just some social studies teacher who's like, I'm going to tell you about civic disobedience. And we're all going to come outside.
Yeah.
I made these signs for you to hold.
I had a teacher once who needed to get exercise, so she would just turn it into a school thing. Where she's like, we have to go outside for science. And then she would just like walk around and get real sweaty. Look,
I love that.
We're not doing anything for science. It's like we're in a city walking around the block.
At least you got to go outside, though. That was nice.
Yeah, we didn't care. We were like, yay, outside, woo. And then the teacher was like, trust me, it's for science.
We're like, yeah, okay, girl, we believe you. Like, I think that's part of it, right? Our education system is not extremely effective, especially these look like there are a ton of young boys. Young boys
Those
don't
signs
benefit.
don't look too good.
Well, they don't benefit by sitting at a desk all day. That's not the optimal learning situation for, like, what are these, middle school boys? I think that we can all agree it's good to have students get learning about the news and be engaged in cultural events, but like, I think this is some teacher saying, come on, let's organize something. I think it's, I don't know, I get frustrated with stuff like this because we'll see this video and nothing will happen, right? If there are really adult men that are being inserted into the school, the fact that these kids are theoretically upset about it won't mean anything to the school board.
That's kind of hilarious. They were like, we got a bunch of adult men who need to sleep in your school, kids. And it's like, well, all right. And here, let me show you this other follow-up video. This really exemplifies everything very well. Listen to this.
Who are they? Who are they? Exactly. Who are they?
Who is they?
Fled war. They're not
Families who fled war is what she's saying.
families.
War.
They're not families?
No, they're men.
Men coming in.
They're all individual
Why
men,
are they
and they can come and
Fleeing.
go as they please.
But they
And this
shouldn't
is a
be near the
school.
children.
This woman should right away. There should be like, there should be a group of people who go to her and say, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you can't vote anymore. We're just not allowed. We've all agreed."
Also, this is all right. So this is one massive problem with the discourse. Whenever anyone tries to set any standard, no matter how reasonable, they're met with a million different concerns about the level of culpability there might be for people who want to violate that standard. So what she's essentially saying is, well, why did they flee? Why are they here? Okay, it doesn't matter. They shouldn't be at that school. That's it. That's it. That's it. Either explain to me why that's an appropriate place for them to be and change my mind, or stop engaging with this conversation. Don't give me a million and one reasons why we should feel bad for them.
Seamus,
we can feel bad for a lot of people, but we need to have rules as a society.
For
right?
this woman, you don't approach her and argue with her and let her ask why you're blocking. Say, why do you want adult men in the school? Just give me a reason. And then when she goes, their family's fleeing war, and be like, okay, well that's not what we're talking about. I'll put it this way. I'll say, okay, ma'am, if you came to me with a family and said this family fleeing war needs a place, I'd be agree with you. But my question to you is, why do you want adult men by themselves looking for jobs sleeping in my kid's school?
And also, since you're so enlightened and empathetic and understanding, why don't you go buy some hotel rooms for them? Why don't you take care of it instead of putting it on the children of the community by placing them in their schools?
I propose, I said, let's get the Republicans on this one, a bill that says all these asylum seekers, if someone comes into this country and applies for asylum, they should be placed inside the home of an urban liberal Democrat voter. Go to New York and say they applied for asylum so they get to live in your house. Sorry.
Sounds good.
You voted for it because you know what happened? These people would vote for border security in 2 seconds if we did that. The issue is this video exemplifies how people in Democrat cities vote to bring in illegal immigrants and then try and force them on poor people, saying not in my backyard, in your backyard. No. We're going to put them in your backyard from now on. Let's get that bill. These people go to cities and then put them in your house. This lady who's like, their family's fleeing war. Let's get 2 of these adult men and put them in her home.
And it's not just force them, it's then guilt and shame them if you dare to reject the, hypothesis that just dozens of, fighting age men should just be able to basically invade your country, invade your house. And I think immigration is one of the issues that the elites really, really, really love to lie to us the most about. And I know there are a lot of issues that could compete for that spot, but I think they just love the issue of immigration, in part because I think at their core, they hate this country. They don't think there's nothing to actually being American to them. But the fact that they have the gall to stand up there, whether it's Democrats holding press conferences, on the Hill saying that immigration is actually a boon to America. It's actually great for American workers. They're doing the jobs that Americans want. It's such a lie. It's so ridiculous when it's depressing the wages of American workers, particularly the people that Democrats purport to protect the most, the minority communities. I just think they really get off on lying to the American people about immigration, and it's one of the issues. Honestly, that red-pilled me. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and I saw firsthand how hypocritical these people were when it came to not just immigration, but to every issue. It was fine if it was happening elsewhere, somewhere where they weren't impacted. But the second it encroached, not even necessarily in their backyard, but just a little too close for comfort, suddenly they reversed, at least in private, on the issue, and they would do everything they could to make sure it didn't affect them.
You can very easily predict whether someone is going to be liberal or conservative based on whether they're going to pay the price for liberal policies. And people who have to pay the price for liberal policies inevitably become conservative. And people who do not have to pay any price for it keep spouting their liberal talking points and then shaming anyone who has to suffer because of their policies for not embracing the suffering with absolute joy.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy as well. If you go to LA, and you would know this as well. If you're in Beverly Hills, the town police there, or the area police, keep that little area very nice and very clean and very tidy. You drive about 10 minutes down the street and you're on 6th Street, and it's a totally different story.
Remember the guy who was cheering on Twitter the riots, and then once the riots started heading towards Beverly Hills, he's like, "No, why are you coming?" He's tweeting like, "Don't come here, go downtown, go where the poor people live."
No, and then he said, "Sorry."
To go back to the Martha's Vineyard example. They immediately removed them. None of the migrants stayed on Martha's Vineyard. They shipped them to Cape Cod, where they stayed on a military base. I mean, they were willing to get rid of this problem as soon as it was inconvenient to them. That's why I said this before,
We're gonna go to super chats. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button?
I'll take credit.
It's running perfect for me. There's nothing.
Because
no
I
issues
talked
here
about
whatsoever.
Cape Cod. They're so touchy on the internet about that.
Yeah, on our end, everything is totally fine.
It's literally just YouTube.
Lag spike, glitch.
Yeah.
Yep, that's YouTube.
Sorry, I was stepping on a cable.
The FBI.
Let's it's like frame jumping now. We've got no dropped frames, we've got perfect connection, we've got high speed internet,
Yeah,
so
just nothing wrong.
anyway.
Blame YouTube.
Yeah, blame
If
YouTube.
this UFO was the thing that kept the show running and you guys sat me near it, I'm going to be real mad because I don't need this kind of pressure.
Let's read some super chats. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, local distributor, stacked of pallets of beer everywhere. Bud Light in back corner nearly empty. Me to clerk, dang, you selling lots of Bud Light? Him, nope, it's the only beer we didn't restock. Yeah, I mean, if you can't move it. This is what John Rich said when he at first he was like, look, we're not moving it. We're not moving Bud Light. We're not getting rid of it because of the boycott. It's just nobody's buying it. So what are we supposed to do? We're gonna stock a different beer if nobody wants it.
Yeah, it's gonna go bad otherwise.
Yep. Holistic Patriot says, we want official Tim Pool beanies. Big boxes of official beanies. Actually, I got one right here.
Whoa.
Look at this.
Hold on. I'm a journalist now. Give me a beanie.
There you go. Seamus is going to put on the official Timcast beanie. And
Should I have like which logo facing forward? This face
well,
forward?
you can also it can also be worn like a slouch beanie if you unfold it.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so you can wear it as however that it's frozen, and then I can see on our back end everything seems to be fine. All right, where are we at? Wrath of Paul says, you were talking about bear attacks yesterday, and my first thought was I'd rather take my chances with the bears in the middle of nowhere than live among humans in some of these big cities. Completely agree.
We do need bear wrestlers. That's
Well,
what I learned yesterday.
As a journalist, I believe it is the case that more people are harmed by other people than bears. That is a fact.
From you,
The
a
fact
journalist.
checkers agree.
That is, I've learned. Thank you.
The fact checkers in the room, they're consenting.
The fact checkers all agree with me. I am correct.
It's funny because it's sort of your Tucker Carlson voice, just not quite as extreme.
This is how I talk.
It's your journalist voice.
This is my journalist voice.
All right, Mad Max says, Durham Report in 6 words. They all got away with it. Watch Greg Gutfeld's epic rant about the Durham Report. Very interesting. All right, where are we at? Unwoke says, I like the name of your decaf coffee. Sure do wish I thought of it first. Talk about seditious conspiracy. So we have 2 decaf brands or blends. There's a light and a dark decaf. Sleepy Joe and Unwoke. That's right. And those were the names came up were thought of by our members.
If you want to buy our coffee, go to castbrew.com. You'll be able to buy them there.
Like you're actually
Seamus
part
can't
of
do
this.
it. He can't impersonate.
I'm getting close. See, practice makes perfect. Practice makes perfect. As a journalist, I will learn.
But you're just talking.
That's how you're talking.
But you're not changing your voice.
We sound so similar.
Uh-huh.
It's that famous Garfield Rich
Joe
Cadence.
Rogan is also hard to do an impression of.
I know. I'm
Yeah,
getting.
it's weird.
I'll nail yours down eventually.
Like Trump is a little difficult, but he has that nasally. You put your tongue over your nose.
frankly,
You put your tongue over the back of your mouth when you talk to get that nasally kind of thing. No. And then you got to get the country. You go down when you say it.
Everyone in the chat, tell me, do I sound like Tim? Let me know in the comments below.
You don't.
They'll decide. They will decide.
That was more like Tucker Carlson.
You don't sound like him, but I can understand what cadence you're almost picking up on.
Exactly.
Does
I'm
that
getting
sound
close.
like it makes sense?
No, I know what you mean. I'm like, that's what I have so far. We'll work on it. I'll keep doing the Tim voice, and then eventually I'll have a Tim impression down.
Here's the point,
no,
though.
how could you guys say no? Eventually I'll get the Tim
I told
impression down, and then on days where you're sick, I'll just put the beanie on, and I'll...
I'll just pretend like this
Here's
is
my point.
normal.
Look, Jordan Peterson has this thing where he's like psychologist. He's got this like way of speaking that's unique to him.
Exactly.
And then like for whatever it is about me or Joe, it's just generic perhaps. Like Joe has a unique voice, you know when you hear it, but impersonating it's like how do you can't.
It's tough.
Can't get it.
Well, Joe Rogan's voice is it's like I think you could probably get his cadence down, but his actual intonation, like his voice, I'm sorry, you could get his intonation too, but the voice itself is so unique.
We got to send one of these beanies to Michael Malice.
Yeah,
because he did that one episode where he wore the same clothes as me, and then he kept the beanie and he hung up on his wall.
Right. I literally got asked on Twitter what I like about Michael Malice, and I said that he's a showman and he's not afraid of costumes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He also has I think we gave him the aluminum foil hat that Alex Jones made.
No way.
I mean, those are artifacts, man. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
All right, where are we at? What do we have on these here super chats? Let's find a good super chat.
One day I'll get my impression of Tim down.
One
Do you practice like
and then you'll all
before
be
you're going to bed
sorry.
at night? You stand
You'll
in the
all
mirror.
be sorry. Well, clearly not. If I did, it would be A+.
But you do. What if you've been practicing for years already? It's just that difficult.
It's a really hard one to crack, but I'll get it.
I think,
Let's grab some. What do we
Tim
got?
Dillon has a good Joe
Sporkwitch
Rogan.
says they're not conspiracies, they're spoilers.
Ah, baby.
I've heard people try and do Joe Rogan and they can't get Joe Rogan.
Maybe that's what the video of Trump in the elevator was.
It was Trump impersonating
Trump
Joe
is
Rogan.
the only
Perfect
person
Joe
who-
Rogan. Oh my gosh.
I do want to see that video then. Seamus, as a journalist, please find Trump doing an impression of
I
Joe
will.
Rogan.
I think it's my duty
As a journalist.
as a journalist. As a journalist.
Joe Hill says, don't forget Ukraine also interfered in the 2016 election by helping Clinton with Steele dossier. Ukraine, I think it was Manafort documents, wasn't it? Yeah. They
I thought it was Manafort, but
Yeah. And then even Politico said that they were scrambling after interfering to help the Clintons. And then Politico wrote another article later claiming that their article was disinformation from Russia. Yeah, just hilarious. Politico is Russian disinformation, says Politico.
But they told you themselves, so you can't be mad at them.
Joshua says, once again, Seamus is rolling 20s. He's literally the reincarnation of Midas at this point because everything about him is pure gold, even the potatoes.
You are so kind. Thank you. Except my Tim impression. But I do appreciate the compliment. That's very kind.
Amish Man says, incredible guest. I was a huge fan of yours growing up watching you on Boy Meets World. Please tell Ben Savage to come on Timcast IRL next. Do you hear that a lot?
I get that a lot. And I actually didn't know who she was at first.
I don't know her name. People just say,
Topanga.
I know the character is Topanga, but I don't know the actress's name.
I should know.
Well, like they were stoned when they were writing that show. They were like, it's like a show about a kid in school, and you know his name is what was his name in the show?
Corey, right?
I think
Was it-
Corey, but
was it
there's
Corey?
also
Corey's a good name, and then you got like John, Mike, Bill, and Topanga, and they're like,
I
what
think
was
she's-
that last
And
one?
her explanation is like, I've never really seen the show, but it's like her parents are hippies, and let's not talk about it again.
well,
right?
there's Topanga Canyon, which
Is
is
that-
right in LA.
yeah,
so
they're
that's
saying, like,
probably
she's
why
named
she
after, like,
right
nature.
above Malibu. Yeah,
But the thing is, like, some TV shows, names that are in them become popular, sort of trend as baby names. But I don't think anybody picked up on the Topanga trend.
I think
yes?
it's kind of a cool name.
Oh, is this what you're going to name your daughter?
Maybe.
Oh, a future Topanga.
Too on the nose. No, people always say that, and I never.
Do you watch the show?
No.
Oh.
No,
okay.
I honestly, growing up, I never really watched movies or TV, so I never
Me too.
understand
kinda
pop
based.
culture. Like, I was on War Room once on an episode, and Steve turned to me. He was asking me how I do a lot of my reporting, and I said, well, primarily pattern recognition. And he goes, you're just like Rain Man. You're like the guy. And I didn't know what he meant by that, so I was like, thank you. And then I later looked it up. I was like, oh, I think you just called me like autistic.
yeah, basically.
Which I could. I don't know. But yeah.
Rain Man was really good at playing blackjack.
Yeah, he's really
Yes.
good at math.
So
Yeah.
take me to a casino. but
I hadn't seen Rain Man. I only saw it passively when I was a kid, but I know the trope is like they go to Vegas and they play blackjack. So I was like, I really want to watch this movie. And it's barely about that. It's literally just a story about a guy who comes to love his brother that he had just met for the first time. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I thought it was like
It's
about
a sweet film.
It is. I thought it was going to be about like, I thought the movie was literally a guy takes his brother to Vegas to win a bunch of money and get super rich, when it was really a guy finds out he has a brother, at one point goes to Vegas one time, gets kicked out, but then decides that he loves his brother, even though his brother is developmentally disabled, and then tries to fight for custody, but then eventually just ends up visiting him periodically. And I'm like, oh, that's not at all what I thought the movie was
I
going to
read
be.
the Wikipedia summary,
Yeah.
and that is not at all what I gathered from that. I thought it was just about gambling.
There's
so maybe
like,
I have to
that's it.
actually watch
Isn't
it.
there
That's the part people remember. Like,
right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry,
Hannah
no.
Claire.
I was saying, isn't there a
but-
movie about like some guy at MIT who's like then part of a secret poker league?
yeah, and they're counting cards.
Well, this happens though, where you'll remember a movie being about something, and you remember that being the whole movie, and it turns out that's just like a 10 or 15 minute sequence.
Right.
Like I remember I rewatched Home Alone a couple years ago, and the sequence where he's like beating up on the burglars with his booby traps, I think is like 10 to 20 minutes. It's really most of the film is just about him like running around being stupid while his parents are gone.
And when he's in New York, you know, he just meets Donald Trump. That's the whole movie. It's just 2 hours.
It's literally just the same movie twice. It's the
know,
exact
right?
same movie
Yeah.
twice. Like every plot point
It's
just
the only
copied in
time
New
I've
York.
understood sequels, right? They're like, this format worked. Children loved it. We'll plug in slightly different variables. We'll do it again.
It was even the same
makes sense to
criminals
me.
in New York, you know?
Well, sure. Who else would be after
Exactly.
him? We don't want to create too many bad guys. We don't want to freak children out.
That's true. There aren't that many bad people in the world.
Sean Austin says, Tim, deep fake Trump in an elevator picking his nose and release it as the elevator tape, ultimate troll. I saw that, so I went on Midjourney and I just made Trump screaming and then Trump crying. And then it's Trump holding his neck going like, ah, in an elevator. And I just quote tweeted the Huffington Post thing. Like, there it is. There's your.
I found it. Best journalist ever.
That's right.
I tried a
Pulitzer Prize.
couple and I couldn't get it to work because they violated the TOS. I wrote like Trump firing a gun into the air, yelling, and it wouldn't make it. And
well, every time I tried to make Joe Biden or Trump, it would say rejected, and I'd have to click appeal, and then it would say your appeal has been approved, and it would make the image. And then the weirdest thing is, I tried doing some very basic images. What I was trying to do was take a picture, an existing picture, and then write something like a woman standing in this picture, and then it would be like rejected. This is inappropriate content. I was like, what? You know what I think was happening? So Midjourney is trained on the internet, and I think the issue is the prompt discovered, like, my prompt was innocuous, a woman standing in a forest. I was like, and then you can upload the picture and then it'll render it. I think Midjourney was trying to make sexual images because of what the internet is when you search for women. Maybe like sports bras or like women in bikinis and stuff like that. So the AI was like, nope, this is making something naughty. We can't show it to you. And I was just like, hey, wait a minute. Like, I did not ask for anything bad. I'm trying to just see what Midjourney can do here. So a bunch of the stuff I tried doing, I would put like, here's the trick. You put high-res photograph caption, Getty Images. And then what that'll do is it'll imitate a Getty image, which is typically like news footage of an event. And that's how I made Donald Trump running with Sonic the Hedgehog. And it looks actually like Trump is running. Sonic looks totally fake because, of course, Sonic's not a real thing. But Trump looks like he's actually running. And then I wrote America's Back. So those are some of the tricks. You'll also notice if you go into the Midjourney rooms and Discord, there's this huge wall of text people use that lists a whole bunch of camera and file formats to force the AI to make high resolution, high dynamic range photographs that look really, really good. Wow. Yeah, it's crazy what they can make when you put in that massive prompt. It's cool stuff. Yeah. Kane Abel says, Seamus, if you want to be a journalist, just copy the mainstream by making bull crap up. That is pretty much all they do now. You can just add a twist to it to make it funny.
I'm excited to start doing that.
Yeah, so like let's do this. You don't want to get sued. So Seamus put on this beanie, right? Well, as we know, news outlets have claimed Tim Pool is far right. We can now write Seamus Coughlin dons offensive far right costume on air, considered deeply offensive by many, shocking display, et cetera, and then people can start to imagine after you tweet that out. I am shocked by Seamus Coughlin donning such a racist and far right costume that's deeply offensive to marginalized people. Someone else can then say, summarizing, Seamus Coughlin was accused of wearing racist outfit. So you can keep changing the story. And this is what they do.
And then it's me dressed as a leprechaun.
But it's all you can't sue over it because this is what's happening to our society. It's the bank robbery analogy I used. A guy walks up to a bank and throws a burlap sack on the steps and keeps walking. That's not illegal. Another guy walks in, picks up the burlap sack and throws it in the lobby, carries out his business. Another guy brings the burlap sack to the counter and says, I think someone dropped this, and then leaves. Another guy throws a demand note onto the steps. Someone brings it in. No one knows who wrote it or where it came from. The guy who picked it up on the ground didn't do it. And then all of these people did one little thing. So when the money is removed from the bank and then thrown into a truck, not a single person robbed the bank. No one goes to jail. This is what's happening right now in society. Journalists will say something like, I heard Seamus was racist. And then someone will write, Seamus accused of being racist. Then another journalist will write, Seamus, a deeply racist individual, or a man accused of being deeply racist, comma. And then someone else will see that and be like, Seamus Coughlin is known as a deeply offensive racist who makes racist comments. They'll just keep changing the story until they make up and fabricate their own sources. And then they can write whatever they want. They can be like, Seamus, you're a controversial figure who's been accused of being a racist. What do you say to that? And you're like, when? By who? And then it's this huge chain of fake news written by the same people.
Exactly.
Over and over
We
again.
have this source, this source, this source, this source. It's idea laundering.
It's several Google page results deep that they have this, but there's no supporting evidence.
All right. KJ Seath says, Tim, I have grown towards Vivek's message. Do you think his campaign is real or is it for book sales? I think it's real. I think a reasonable person can conclude that Vivek probably won't win. But a lot of people run for messaging purposes. I'm not going to tell you. I think Vivek really does want to win. I genuinely think so. I would argue that he probably knows he wouldn't, but I'm not going to say that because I don't know what he's thinking. I think he's a smart guy. He knows his likelihood of winning is very low, very low. I would imagine his intent is to force a message on ESG onto the debate stage and to push this into modern politics. However, I think he's trying to win and he wants to win. You know, I think even Trump was surprised that he won. What was the story like on election night when the results came in? He was like, did we win? Like, did that really happen? Like, wow. Like he didn't think it was going to happen. Yeah. But I think Vivek's great. I think he's great. What do we got here? Absinthe X says, Seamus, Catholic Church has commands as don't covet your neighbor's wife and things, but Exodus only says don't covet anything. So which commandment was removed so the count still comes out as 10?
Wait, hold on. You're saying Exodus says... So Exodus does list a number of things you can't covet there. But if you actually read Exodus 20, it's a number of different statements. So Jewish people and Protestants number it a little bit differently than Catholics. So, for example, at the end, we break up the 9th and 10th commandment into thou shalt not covet your neighbor's goods or covet your neighbor's wife. And I'm sorry, coveting your neighbor's wife is the 9th commandment. Coveting your neighbor's good is the 10th commandment. But yeah, there are other things listed. I guess I'm not entirely sure what he's asking. Like what was...
I don't know if I understand either.
Yeah. Could you reread that?
He's basically saying that... I honestly, I don't know. Some say don't covet anything. Some say don't covet your neighbor's wife and things.
Oh, okay. So there are a number of differences, right? So for example, if you, and I have this pulled up here, but you shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above or on earth beneath or in the waters below. You shall not bow down before them or worship them, for I am the Lord your God. I am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sins of the parents to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of love for those who love me and keep my commandments. Okay, so yeah, that's compressed into you shall not make graven images, the way Protestants number the 10 commandments. As Catholics, we lump taking other gods before him as something that also prohibits making graven images and then worshiping them. So there are different ways that these things are numbered. But that's not something that people don't acknowledge. Like that's not a secret, I guess, is my point.
We should do an episode of The Culture War with you and Ian. Because you guys were supposed to do that long form conversation that never happened. So we should get together on that one. All right. Noah Sanders says, where is the Timcast fact checking nonprofit company? We are all still waiting to have fact checkers we can trust. Keep it the great and hard work. In the process of filing. So I think it takes like years. Yeah. The problem is typically like a nonprofit will start in a state, get their federal number, and then file in the state to do everything. These systems were created back before the internet. So typically if you start a nonprofit, it was just in one state and you filed and then you'd operate. Now we have to file in every single state because our audience exists all over the country, which brings up another issue. A lot of people are asking, their members, and they were asked to update their address or information. It's because we have reached a threshold now where we have members in every different state and territory. So we have to collect that information for tax purposes. It's a legal requirement. And then we have to pay those taxes. So that's reality. As for the fact checking nonprofit, we've got some prominent individuals who have said they're committed on donating to help fund this operation. We're really excited for it. We probably need to figure it out. The challenge for us is managerial because of how many different states and how many different regulations there are. But I think we might be able to hire somebody and then get some revenue from a single state where we filed so far and then use that to kickstart the process. So it is what it is. We're working on it, Ben Keith says, the judge for tomorrow's Kari Lake trial gutted Kari's case in a ruling today. Now Kari's lawyer cannot question if the signature verification process was fraudulent, only if a check took place for questionable ballots. So I think based on what I read, Kari Lake still has a decent case. If she can show that signatures don't match, you can make the argument that the process did not take place, right? So Katie Hobbs, I went over this. This is really funny. So Katie Hobbs has a guide as Secretary of State, this is from 2020, on how to verify signatures and what makes something questionable. I pulled up the New York Times where it's like, here's 11 signatures, which ones match? And then based on Katie Hobbs' signature verification guidelines, I successfully chose the 2 signatures that matched out of 11. I was actually surprised I was able to pull that off. I thought I was going to get it wrong, but I got it right. Based on that information, if Kari Lake says, here's a handful of ballots, that do not adhere to Katie Hobbs's guidelines, she could argue this shows they did not signature verify. You could they might argue no, it just means the verification was poorly done. I think, well, hold on. If the guideline says if it does this, this, or this, it's not verified, and these things don't adhere to the guideline, you can argue they didn't verify. Not that it was poorly done, they just didn't even do it. I think that's what she's gonna have to argue. But I've not seen the evidence. We've got to see her present the evidence. We'll see. She posted photos of 2020 ballots, right? Let's see what they got. Let's grab some more super chats. The TJ drummer says Bud Light launching this campaign so close to Memorial Day too, rolling a huge one, guys. Oof. Yep. Kevin Kosnahan says Heineken's cheers to all the fans commercial seems to have taken shots at Bud Light at the end of the commercial. Ooh, I haven't seen that one. I got to check that one out. Let me write that one down. Heineken commercial. I'll check that one out when we wrap. What do we got? Llama says, hey, Tim, for those of us who don't drink coffee, maybe you could start a line of teas, a fun Roberto-inspired line of teas, maybe something like cock teas. It's very, very clever. We are currently working on forcastper.com supplements, but like protein powder and MCT. So probably we're never going to do any kind of vitamins or weird brain blast stuff. I'm not into that stuff. But what I am into when exercising is like a protein powder and MCT powder. We're big fans of that stuff. So we were thinking of creating our own blends and launching our own. We're looking at what we can do in terms of proprietary blends and mixes and the regulations and all that stuff. But we think we might actually be able to launch that very, very soon. Very excited for that. And then for Roberto-inspired lines of teas, we're talking about Roberto Jr. Now, as for Roberto, the original king, maybe we'll make a medium roast called like Return of the King, Roberto,
Like that.
Yeah, Return of the King. But also Roberto Jr. is getting close to retirement. That's right.
Who's his successor?
I don't know. We don't know yet.
Do they have to audition? What's the how does this work out?
No clue. But we don't want Roberto Jr. knocking. So we're incubating a whole bunch of Roberto Jr. babies right now. I think like 30 something. He's a rooster, and so we're gonna have.
I was gonna say, who is this?
Yeah, we're gonna have a whole bunch of
you don't
babies.
know who Roberto Jr.
No,
is?
I know. I'm exposing
Celebrity.
myself, but
Oh my
I
gosh.
don't.
he's
Someone's
very
not
famous.
from our world. He's
Yeah.
Who vets these people?
The
But
FBI.
after he has the babies, we don't want, just like with Roberto. Roberto banged his daughter, and it's because chickens do this.
Okay, I'm glad you established that we're talking about chickens. Because
Yes.
if I thought we were talking about humans and you said that, I would have been
Well,
concerned.
so-
he's a complicated character.
Roosters do this. Chickens do this. You can only do it so much, and so we remove Roberto and bring in his son, which still does have Roberto genetics in there, which
I
is
think
kind
War
of
Room
bad.
needs to start a farm. I don't know if we have the space in DC, but I'm very impressed.
Are you
by-
jealous of
chickens
the
are
chicken
fantastic.
empire?
I really am. We don't have
Yeah, we have
anything
like 50
to show.
something.
Yeah.
We're gonna have like 70 chickens. Oh, and also they had babies. The Silkies had 4 babies, and the Cochin had 2. They've just decided to take it upon themselves to make more of themselves, and they decided
They are reclaiming the family as
They're
Patriot
making-
Front is
Patriot Front got him.
pushing.
They're inspired.
It is
The radical
horrifyingly.
pro-family
Dude, it's
group,
literally
the
a chick
Silky
surrection.
Chicken.
I gotta tell you, it is horrifyingly magical to see the chicken with like the little chickens underneath it, and then you open the thing and it looks at you and it goes like if you come near my babies.
It's a chicken
then-
insurrection.
But you can lift up the mom and she looks around and you can see the little babies going like, "Nee," and then she tries to keep them warm and stuff. It's very cute.
so cute.
And when it's like raining, the mom will like cover the babies to keep them dry, and yeah, it's
There's
great
nothing
when
cute like that at War Room. Yeah.
it's great when they have their own babies because they'll protect them. Whereas if you incubate them, you have to protect them because chickens don't care. They're like, I ain't my baby. No. Let's grab. We'll grab one more super chat here. What do we got? In the old super chat as YouTube's breaking down. So
We finally broke YouTube. Hooray.
Clayton Webb says, ordered coffee on April 22nd, haven't shipped. Any ideas when to expect? It should be soon. So we sold way too much, way too quickly, and it overloaded. So I apologize.
Nice humble brag, Tim.
If it hasn't come yet. We didn't expect it. I mean, I think we had several thousand of each available, and then it all just sold basically instantly, and we're like, oh man, and we had to like rush and try and sell more, and then I had to put in a bunch of personal money to try and cover the costs. So it is making money, but it's selling too quickly, so we can't keep up with orders. We're hoping to get to that point of equilibrium, and then it'll stabilize. But yeah, so thank you for buying Cast Brew coffee. And the coffee shop is currently underway with a lot of work being done, and it's taken a long time because inspections, plumbing, just a whole bunch of crazy stuff to get it up and running, but it's coming. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, become a member at timcast.com. That members only show will be up in about 10 minutes on the front page of timcast.com. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally at Timcast. Natalie, do you want to shout anything out?
I'm Natalie G. Winters on Twitter and all the social media platforms. And of course, tune in to War Room 10 to 12 and 5 to 7.
My name is Seamus Coughlin. I'm a journalist. I am also a political cartoonist and satirist. I run a YouTube channel called Freedom Tunes if you guys want to support that channel. And what I do, then go over to freedomtunes.com and become a member. You will get an extra cartoon each week that only members get. We're also going to be uploading more stuff like behind the scenes podcasts. There are perks like being entered in raffles, to be a background character in videos. So please head over there, check that out. Thank you very much.
I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for Timcast.com. You should 110% follow at Timcast News on Twitter and Instagram. It's great. If you want to follow me personally, you can follow me on Instagram at hannahclaire.b and on Twitter at HCBrimlow. Thank you so much.
And I am Serge.com. Sorry about the audio. It's not me. So, yeah. Follow me at Twitter.com. I had a lot of fun arguing with you guys yesterday. It's always great. I love it.
We will see you all over at timcast.com for that uncensored members only show in a few minutes. Thanks for hanging out.